my computer.
Okay.
Hey, everybody, this is Ted Check, and I'm here with a very special guest, Rik Fox. Rik Fox is a legend from the Sunset Strip, appearing in many bands, WASP, Steeler, and a bunch of other ones. We're going to go over all of them. But first, Rick. I'm going to cut right to it. It's great. It's great to see you. Great to talk with you. But let's cut right to it. This is the thing that everybody wants to know: the Steeler cut. Give me guitars or give me death. How did that all come about?
Well, first of all, I have to say pshaw when you said legend. I don't
No,
I
no,
don't
no.
see I don't see myself as a legend. I don't think I've earned that compared to a lot of people in the business who do deserve that title, but thank you anyway. Um, what else was I was going to say thank you for having me on
Sure, sure.
as a guest. All right, so give me guitars or give me death. Last year, I think it was Ron said I got an idea for the song, and he sent me the basic tracks, and he said, "Here, put your bass on it." And of course, it never the original first, how do I put this? Just the rhythm section, just guitar to like a drum machine or something. It never really sounds like what you would imagine it to sound like the finished product.
Yeah,
So he sent me that, and I sat down with it, and I worked with it, and I worked with it, and I kind of borrowed from myself a little bit in that there's a similarity between "Give Me Guitars" and "Give Me Death" and my bass line on "American Thunder," which I did with the Ron Keel All Stars. In that,
wow.
I start simple. I layer it a little bit at a time. I add something each several measures. I'll add something else and something else. So I build and I layer on what I'm putting into the
Nice.
mix. And then I've been saying that after the solo, there's like this, we bring it down as it's like,
Little
little
interlude. Yeah,
interlude, yeah.
yeah.
And so I said, well, Rick, here's your chance, say something, but don't oversay it and don't undersay it.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out what can I put in there that would kind of keep it flowing and stay within the parameters of it. And I thought back to having always been a huge Deep Purple fan, and I thought back to the song "Woman from Tokyo." Okay, there's a
Yeah.
similar situation, similar setup where they bring it down after that solo, and Roger Glover plays this pretty little bass interlude of his own, this little walk in there. I went, you know what? That kind of gives me an idea, and I just messed around with a couple of things, and what you heard was the final result in that. And
Nice.
Ron called me like 30 minutes after I sent him the file back, and he says, "Hey, brother, you knocked it out of the park. It's great. It sounds awesome." And I said, "You sure you like it?" He goes, "No, it's great." And I said, "So that little interlude part, you can either leave it dry or run it through some stereo chorus, whatever you want to do is fine with me." And that's what he wound up doing, is running it through, some stereo chorus, and it sounds nice. So
Does.
it's the whole package is great. I'm really pleased with it.
Yeah, I'm glad that he allowed you that latitude to do that. Because I know you said in other interviews with other bands, they were like, "Hey, can you just play it straight?" I think that was Blackie Lawless said,
Yeah, it was
"Just
Wasp.
just play
Blackie
it
would
straight,
Blackie would say, "Can you play it simpler?"
play it
I
simple."
said,
Yeah,
"It's three chords. How much simpler can it be?" He says, "Just right on the E and right on the A, and just like that quarter
right.
notes or eighth notes or whatever." And that was, I mean, coming from the '70s and in the early '80s, I'm a more of a melodic player. I like walking bass lines and stuff like that. And then I get to California, and it's the guitar player. The guitar is doing all of the melody line. The bass just is just this in the background. I'm like, there's nothing for the bass player to do except just be with the drum, with the kick and the snare.
Right.
So the writing style was changing, and it was something I had to adapt to. And just it all comes down to listening. Actually, the first thing I listen to is a drummer. I'm always listening. Thanks to Mark Edwards from Steeler, listen what the drummer is saying, and then kind of get in there with him and say it together. And so when he's ready to do that change, I know it's coming, so I'm right there with him.
Hmm.
And like I said, I like to say we're so in the pocket, your change was gone. So
So
you know
and you
like
guys
that.
did a video.
Yes.
What and so it to me it looks like a a fairly expensive or pro shot video.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
It was very pricey. Yes, indeed. Uh, I'm not at liberty to divulge numbers, but it was very expensive. Uh,
You go to Tennessee to do it,
no,
where
no,
Ringo
no, no,
is?
no, no. It was in L.A., in Los Angeles, in Burbank.
Oh, okay.
It was at the place called Center Stage, right by the mountains of Burbank, between the mountains and the airport. And so Ron said, we have an opportunity to do a video for it. So, let's get prepared for that. I put together some ideas for my wardrobe, which was a change from what I was doing. I went more with a 70s look instead of an 80s.
Hmm.
In the pictures I've seen, I look like a 70s porn star with the mustache and the aviator glasses. And anyway,
Channeling your inner Ron
so
Jeremy.
oh no, the hedgehog, no,
Yeah, yeah.
no Ron Jeremy's here.
I got you.
And I was never blessed enough to be a Peter North, but how would I know that? In any event, in adult industry parlance, we flew to L.A. I met Ron like in Denver, and Ron and Renee, his wife, and we flew out together, and then when we landed at Burbank, we went right to the studio just to kind of get a lay of the land, take a look at the setup, and see how it was. But Mark was already there, and we were waiting on Mitch. He came later, and then so we got to see the whole shebang and the setup and all of that. And Ron starts shooting his little documentary stuff while we're there. And then the director, David Pear, David is known for his work with the Dead Daisies. He does all of their videos. So
Okay.
if anybody has seen their stuff, kind of the caliber of what we're talking about here. And so David says, hey, since you're here, why don't you maybe get into some of your outfits? Let me just get some preliminary setups and test shots. And then that wound up being a little bit more than preliminary test shots, because we were doing some full-on action stuff and
Yeah.
things like that. And my back was paying for it, but at the end of the night. But yeah, so we got some preliminary stuff, and then the next day, Saturday, we all went back, and then it was, I don't know, maybe 12 hours or so. It was a really long shoot.
Wow.
You do a lot of wide masters, as we say in the film industry, and then there's your individual solo sections like that. And I gave him a lot of action. I didn't see that. I didn't see a lot of my action stuff in the video, but everybody got some stuff in there, and so it came out looking really well. And I got to take a peek, before it came out. So, I was sworn to secrecy, and so I got to see a little prelim and like that. And Ron says, right before Black Friday, see, I kind of wait whenever Ron has, obviously, the right of first refusal, meaning the first call to publicize something. So
Sure.
when Ron says it's okay, here, take this, you can run with it, or take this. So we don't really talk about it until he says it's all right, and then puts that out first, because he's handling all the marketing. That's his shtick. It's his baby. So
Yeah.
so whatever he sends me or whatever I see him post on Facebook, once it's public, I know I can run with it like that. And he teases me because he's Rik Fox on Facebook, because I'm always on Facebook. Well, so is he. So that's our inside joke. But yeah, so I run with the publicity whenever he's got clearance on it.
Mhm.
And that's it. It came out, and it's getting a lot of really great reviews. Everybody seems to love it. There's no smoke, there's no fog, there's no, it's pretty straight cut and Spartan, and it's just us. There's no bells and whistles.
Now there's a little bit, at least for me, there's a little bit of a mystery going on, because you've got a guy named Dwayne Miller who's credited for the drums.
Right.
But then at the end of the video, it credits Mark Edwards, who's the original, or at least the Steeler drummer who played on the record, and who later went on to he was in Lion. He had his own EP, but then he got paralyzed in a motocross accident.
Right.
Who is the drummer? And the drummer is wearing a Mark Edwards Code of Honor T-shirt.
That's Mark.
That is Mark. How is he?
That is Mark.
I thought he was paralyzed. I mean, that's fantastic.
Well, Dwayne did play on the session. That was already a given. And usually when we go out and do Steelers shows, Dwayne plays drums with us. So
Okay.
we've already worked together several
So he
times.
did the studio work. Dwayne Miller did the
Yeah,
studio.
I mean Dwayne's really busy in his own right with several bands that he's in. So
Okay.
we were fortunate to be able to get him to do the session. And then Mark, because of his medical affliction with the motocross accident, has not been able to play drums for like decades.
Right, right.
But he really wanted to be involved in this and wanted to be, not more than just Ron and myself. We needed, another guy from the band,
Get three
at
out
least
of four.
from the album lineup. Yeah. And so, because the olive branch has been offered to Malmsteen several times. He just thumbs his nose and gives us a finger. He's not interested. So
Uh,
there's gratitude for you. At
yeah.
any rate, so Mark, from what I was told, physically worked on learning this song like X amount of hours a day, every day. And the guy,
Wow.
he's a very busy businessman in his own right. And so we didn't really know what to expect until he got up on the riser and we watched him go through it. And Ron and I just stood there and went, "Holy crap, he's nailed it." I mean, Marcus has been it. Mark is not a high profile guy. He's very low key,
Yeah.
but everybody in the business who knows him, and they know what he's capable of. I mean,
Oh,
he worked on the Vinnie Vincent albums, with Bobby Rock,
oh, did he?
helping do all. Yeah, there's a lot of side stuff that people don't know that Mark has been involved with.
I did not, and I just found out earlier, I think it was today, that I knew of this band called Third Stage Alert, and that
Right.
Malmsteen had produced it. I didn't know Mark Edwards was involved in that.
Yeah, after Steeler, he had the Third Stage Alert, and he had Lion,
Right.
with Jerry and Cal and Doug, and so and he's still friends with all these guys. A matter of fact, that Monday I was leaving. We were staying at the Chateau Marmont Hotel because we shot the documentary there, and we did some key photos that replicated the time when Led Zeppelin stayed at the Chateau Marmont. So we kind of mimicked those photos from that era. But that Monday morning when I was leaving, Doug Aldrich showed up for breakfast
Huh.
at the hotel, and so we got to say hi and
Or
everything.
to say hi to Mark and
Yeah,
and everybody.
yeah, and he sat with Mark for a while. I was already leaving, so it was hi, how you doing, hug, goodbye, I got to go,
Oh, okay.
like that. And so yeah, so Mark was in Third Stage Alert and Lion, and then he had his accident, and then he was out,
Ah, yeah,
for decades. Yeah.
yeah. I heard about. I remember it back then, and it was just horrible. And
So what you see in the video is Mark actually going for it physically.
wow,
So
that's amazing. So he must have went through all sorts of physical therapy to
he put
get to that
himself
level.
he put himself through all of that to make sure that he knew every note, every accent. I learned a lot when I joined Steeler playing with Mark. I mean, it seems like it didn't matter that I was playing 6 nights a week, 3 or 4 sets a night in Jersey clubs in upstate New York,
Hmm.
because working with Mark is a different caliber of drummer. And he really taught me about, listening to what the drummer is saying and all of the intricacies that go with a good rhythm section. So I always credit him, my gratitude to him for that.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, so, what you see in the video is Mark actually delivering the real physical strikes and hits on the cymbals and everything. So,
fantastic.
yeah.
So this song is part of an album that Ron is putting out that has a bunch of other things on it. Keel
Heel
World,
World.
Keel World, because it's Ron's world and we're just living in it.
That's
Uh,
true. That's a fact.
he's got stuff from Keel, from the Ron Keel band, and from other probably I don't know about his time as Ronnie Lee Keel, the country star, but he's got all these different things on that record. And this Steeler song is just one song, one cut on that. But
Yeah.
my thinking is, if you're going to go through the trouble of making a pro shot video, and you're gonna and this is the first Steeler song in 40 years, is this the beginning of something? Is this, I mean, and I even said it, I think on one of the video, I think it was the video, that we need a full album and we need a tour. We as the fans, that's what the fans need. That's what the fans demand.
Well, yeah, and from your lips, everybody's lips to God's ears, make in the words of Picard, make it so. I
Right.
hope so, but
Make it so, number one. Yeah.
yeah, it's just there's a lot. People don't realize there's a lot that goes into the logistics
Yeah, no,
of trying to attempt that, especially in today's market.
I got you.
You see,
I mean,
it's very expensive.
yeah, no, I understand. I've been, and a channel I just recently started following is Bad Brad, Brad Henderson. He was on the Sunset Strip kind of a little bit later, 88 to maybe 94, something like that. He's got a channel on YouTube, and he's put out multiple videos about the Sunset Strip, and then
Hmm.
he later moved to I think it was Nashville, and so more recently he put out a video about, hey, it's so tough to make it as a touring musician.
It is. It
Um,
is.
but I
You know,
think I think with the Steeler name, you're gonna have you're gonna be a draw. And I saw Ingve like maybe a year and a half ago with like 250 other people. So, and I know the guy's got an absolutely huge ego. And I mean, I've been following him since 85.
you
But
think?
but but seriously, he could play 250 a night, or he could join Steeler and you guys could probably pack 1,000 a night.
And he's probably going to make big demands on us that would be impossible to meet.
Sure,
So,
sure.
he would have his own tour bus and his own trucks and his own
Oh,
everything
sure.
else. So and he'd be like, okay, what are you guys bringing to the table? Um, you know, I wish we could. I wish we could make it happen. I really do. Ron just sent me another song to start look at working on,
Oh,
which I have.
okay.
You also have to look at it from Ron's perspective. Like you said, it's Ron's world, and we're passing through.
Right.
And we should be grateful that we're in Ron's world and passing through. Some of us choose to stay a little while longer than others. Uh, it's Ron's call. He's been putting out podcast hints that he doesn't know how much longer he really wants to stay active in the business. As
Well,
a
this would be a
singer,
hell of a way to go out,
as a singer, that's a lot of it's a lot of work on his throat.
wear and tear on the
That
vocal.
too. That too.
Yeah.
I mean, when we did the Keel Fests, it was Keel, the Ron Keel band, and
Right.
Steeler, and he was singing through all three bands.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
by the end of the night, I mean, that's pretty rough.
Sure.
It would be really a great way to kind of go out, right off into the sunset with Steeler doing like a whole show. But again, that's a Ron call. It's all, he's the guy, in charge of the ship. It's up to him. So I just, whatever he says, hey, you ready? I'll go. Okay, yeah, and then we go.
Because
And it was great. It was great working with Mitch Perry as well.
I was going to say, because he's the guy that replaced Ingve when well, I don't even know. Did he leave to join Alcatraz or was he fired?
He left.
He left.
Yeah, he was already scoping out bands while he was in Steeler. He was
Oh,
looking for opportunities, and Mark told me at one point Mitch was a roommate of his, but I don't know why Mitch never came down and auditioned for Steeler.
hmm,
So maybe it was just maybe timing. I don't know, but Mitch is another guy. He's like Mark. He's very low key.
right.
You might not even know the guys in the room, but his reputation precedes him.
Mhm.
He's got a hell of a resume. He's played with some of the biggest stars in the world, and so to have Mitch come and work with us is awesome. It's
Right.
uh, um, Mitch used to put on. Well, he still does. These little all-star jams like
Oh,
that,
okay.
and so unfortunately, see, the thing is, the rub with me with LA is either you're on top, or if you're not, nobody cares.
Hmm.
you know. And so, when you say these people who do these podcasts about the Sunset Strip or books like Nothing But a Good Time, it seems like I get lost somewhere. I fall through the cracks. Well, these people doing stuff about Sunset Strip, and I'm overlooked, or
Hmm.
either purposely or not, or by accident. I can't say.
Really?
But being as much of a part of the Sunset Strip as I was, it's just I don't know why I get overlooked on this. everybody says, "Oh yeah, you were there." Every time I turn around, Rik Fox was here. Rik Fox was there. He was this Steeler and Sin and this band.
Right.
But we're overlooked in almost all of these either publications or these other. It's something that specifically with the Sunset Strip, Steeler was a cornerstone of the Sunset Strip, along with Rat, Motley Crue, and say Black and Blue or Quiet Riot. We were all cornerstones of that moment in time.
Yeah.
And all of these other bands get notoriety, and then when it comes to Steeler, they're like, who? You know, we're not even on the map.
I mean, and that's crazy because, Ron went on to form Keel, which was a successful band. Malmsteen, of course, did his thing. And then you just take the record itself. At one time, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if it still has the record, pardon the pun, but it was one of the best or the highest selling independent heavy metal records.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. It is.
So how do you overlook that? I don't get it.
Most people don't know that. Yeah, they would if it's not put under their nose, they wouldn't notice to bring it up. And I've brought it up many times, but who listens to me? I go in one ear and out the other with most people. But that's true that it was the highest selling independently released metal album. I can't say of all time because I don't know what the numbers are.
Right.
But it certainly was before Metallica, like that. And of course, these days you still have your critics and trolls who go, yeah, well, so what? The band sucked anyway, and the album sucked, and Steeler sucked, and the best thing about Steeler was Malmsteen, so you can tell why he left. It's just that crap's out there. It's just the fans know.
Right, and I know you've said this before, but for a lot of people, it's if you were, if you crash landed on a deserted island. What record or how your top 5 records or whatever that you would have with you, and Steeler is one of those for a lot of people. And
oh yeah,
and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but it would be for me too. It's because it had every song is a gem to me. It's like it's one of those. I mean, it doesn't. There's not a bad song on it.
No, and the thing is too. I was just saying this in another podcast the other day. Some of the best rock songs, the song titles are all cliches, and Ron has like the king of cliche song titles, and they always seem to work, and they work well, and they work for a reason, like that, and so and you could take "Give Me Guitars" or "Give Me Death" and turn it into anything, like "Give Me This" or "Give Me Death" or "Give Me That," "Give Me that's an old, it's "Give Me Liberty" and "Give Me Death" was the original. Like that. So, the songs stand on their own, and some people like them and some people don't. But you know what? They're easy to remember when the album's over. You can still have them in your head.
Right. Well,
you don't have solos. You have rhythms and melodies and choruses. So,
and I was thinking about this the other day. To me, the record is poignant because it I feel that it was a commentary on what was going on at that time, what Ron and you guys were experiencing at that time. Like you look at No Way Out. I wrote a couple things down here. He talks about out of luck with nowhere to run, easy. And if I caught the lyrics right, easy bargain, cheap liquor store, can't stop my blood on the floor. Cold Day in Hell's talking about a dream stealer. Come take a chance on me. Like that sounds like something with the music business.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Right on the nose.
Down to the Wire. Time is running out now. I've got one shot to take. Like realizing that, hey, we can't, we've got to try to get a record deal that, we got to hurry up and get going on this.
Yeah. If you notice the pattern, you connect the dots, most of these are little mini biographies of Ron.
Yeah.
It's his experiences.
All right, now Hot on Your Heels. Is that about a stalker? I gotta know.
I don't know. You got the lyrics there? Funny, I can't see. I mean, this stuff was already written when before I joined the band. Yeah. So
it's like remember Every Breath You Take by the Police. Who knew that was about?
That's a stalker. Yes,
right,
and Blondie.
Nobody knew.
Blondie's song, One Way or Another. That's the other stalker song.
Oh, is that right?
Okay. Yeah, listen to the lyric, One Way or Another. I'm going to get you, get you, get you.
Well, that's true. True.
But
Good point.
yeah, you mentioned No Way Out. We were trying to write something commercial in the vein of Def Leppard, because the Def Leppard in '83 was all over MTV every 5 minutes.
Oh yeah,
From Pyromania.
Yeah.
So we were trying to make an attempt to take a stab at something that was commercially sounding like that, and that's where that came from.
Gotcha.
And the only thing I got credit for was the theme, Abduction. So
the lead into that.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, back in the day when they made albums, you'd always put what you want to be your single is the first song. So when the DJ put the needle down, he goes on the first song, and that's your hit single, whatever that first song is.
It's easier for him to find.
Well, that too, but the way the songs are put in order on the album, side one is actually Cold Day in Hell starts in the middle of our set, and side two starts with Abduction, and that's actually the first part of the set. So side two would be the beginning of our set, and side one would be the middle of our set to the end. So it's kind of like cut in half and then put like that. So Abduction.
So you would open a show with Abduction.
Yeah, that was the fanfare to bring you to the stage.
To build it up. Yeah. The hype.
Yeah. A lot of bands had themes that would bring you to the stage. That was a big thing with me theatrically from the bands that I was watching, like Angel and this band and that band. They'd have something musical to bring them to the stage instead of just get up there, plug it and play.
Oh, yeah.
It would build the excitement, the anticipation. So we went to the Roxy to see the Y&T. The whole band went. And it was the Black Tiger album tour.
Okay.
And they have an instrumental theme called From the Moon. And then it reprises again at the beginning of Forever, the song Forever.
Right.
But it stayed with me all the way back to the Steeler Mansion where we were living, and I drew upon several different deep cut aficionados would know what I'm talking about. I drew on several different influences. There's the theme from the movie Phantasm. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
And then there was a song by Grand Funk Railroad called Loneliness. And right after the intro, there's this little ba 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 ba. And the guitar comes in real gentle. And what Mel Schacher's playing on the bass, that also started to come to me. And I plugged in, and I sometimes play bass chords. So I hit an E chord on the bass, and then I hit a C chord. So the movement of going from E to C, I don't know if that's a minor, it might be a minor scale thing. I started playing that, and you can hear it through the walls. So Malmsteen comes in and goes, "Hey, man, that sounds pretty cool. What do you play, man?" So I showed him, just going E to C. And he starts trying to, he picked up his guitar, and he was trying to put something in and around that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mark came in, got behind the kit, and then I would hit an E chord, and he would go, with the drums, brum, 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 and hit the C chord, brum, 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 brum. And that's how Abduction was born.
Oh, nice.
So that was my brainstorm, and my influences of where those came from, and that was my contribution to the album, was the intro theme.
Oh, okay. So the lyrics had already been written. Ron did all the lyrics.
Yeah.
Prior to.
Yeah, and the trip back to the Steeler Mansion from the Roxy was and no pun intended, was one hell of a ride. We were stopped at a traffic light, and this car pulls up next to us. On our left, there's a bunch of gangbangers.
Oh God!
And words were said, faces were like, "Hey, what?" That kind of machismo thing. And next thing you know, one of the guys comes out, he's got a gun in his hand.
Oh, geez.
And we just hit the gas. It was Jimmy, our guitar, our guitar tech, Jimmy, was driving. It was his car, and he hit the gas so fast these guys had to like run back to get in their car, do the Chinese fire drill, and now it was the car chase from Bullet with Steve McQueen.
Oh my God.
We were tearing through the streets of LA trying to lose these guys.
Oh my God.
And we luckily, to make a long story even longer, we found a driveway somewhere. We pulled in and turned off the lights,
Nice,
and they zoom right past us. We lost them, thank God, because the outcome would not have been good on that. A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't know this story.
No, I've never heard that one. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if Ron ever discussed it in his book, but
wow.
So we took a lot of back streets, hidden back streets, to get back to where we were living at the Steeler Mansion. So that was
Malmsteen freaking out. I mean, because he was young. He was like 19. He must have been.
We all freaked out. We were all of us were packed in the car.
Yeah.
And then Jimmy and his brother Alan, who did our sound. So it was 6 of us packed in the car. It was a white knuckle ride, I'm telling you.
Oh my God. Wow.
So, yeah.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, so the kind of the violence, the rough and tumble, environment that LA was, I mean, is I feel is truly reflected in that record. And you don't hear that from a lot of bands, because when you think of the Sunset Strip, it's just sex, drugs, rock and roll, and bands like Rat and Poison, were just more about good times and partying and girls.
Well, Poison came later, but yeah, I got you.
Well, yeah. I mean, even Van Halen. When I think about it, Van Halen could get dark every now and then. I mean, you look at Little Dreamer, when they called you least likely to succeed, and
well, it depends how deep into Peru David Lee Roth went. If you understand what I'm saying here, his ski trip in Peru.
Gotcha. Yeah. But I mean, or a Fair Warning. Most of the Fair Warning record is, to me, is that it's a very dark record.
Well, they started to mature in the songwriting, and it wasn't all just "I'm the One" and "Ice Cream Man" and "I'm on fire." They started, they got past some of the what we call the barn burning stage. Those kind of songs, barn burners, like "Hot on Your Heels." That's a barn burner. "I'm the One." That's a barn burner. They started actually writing more song stuff that was had some substance to it. So yeah, definitely. And it was fun. It was fun playing the Steeler songs then. It's fun playing them now. I evolved my playing a lot more since then. So I have a lot. I've rewritten my bass lines where they're a lot more. How do I say melodic? But they actually groove better in the Steelers in the songs. But we don't play a lot of the stuff that I've done that in. So there's a couple of songs Ron doesn't want to sing anymore. So I guess when you get older, it don't make sense. So
I mean, some of that stuff is tough too. You're talking about subject matter, but also the upper register stuff has got to be difficult too.
Ron, by his own admission, doesn't like the way he sang on that album either. He had the least amount of time to put in what he brought to the table. Everybody else got more time to do what they got to do. And then he felt really pressed for time. And he did like one take, another take onto the next song, one take, another take onto, and so on. So he didn't really have the chance to put the budget was running out.
Yeah.
It was like the last day. We got to get everything done,
Right.
So
I did want to ask you about Yngwie. Was it clear to you, or could you kind of see that this kid was going to usher in this whole neoclassical genre? All these other guys that followed him with the arpeggios and the sweeping and all that kind of stuff.
I can't speak for everyone else, but I know I didn't really think about it at the time.
Yeah,
it was going by so fast. I mean, Yngwie and I did like 6 or 7 shows with the band before the lineup changed again, and it just went by like a blur. It's just one show, then another show, then another show, and each show had subsequently more people because word of mouth and everything. I think I sent you a picture of us playing at the Roxy, and it's like shoulder to shoulder, and that's playing the Roxy is very prestigious. So,
Nice.
when we played there with Vandenberg, we did two shows. They did two. It was like us and in Vandenberg, and then us and in Vandenberg. So each of us did two shows, two sets that night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
which
cool.
I've never really heard of in L.A., but yeah, so we did that. But yeah, each show had more and more people, and I've tried to stay on top of trying to get some documentation from each of our shows. And I know that we played the Troubadour, and for whatever reason, I have absolutely no photos from that show, and it was packed.
Hmm.
We that's where Ingve says he looked out the window and the line was going down the street and around the corner, and he said, "Wow, man, who's playing tonight?" And they went, "You." That's us. So and it
Oh,
went all the
man.
way up to Heaney's, but yeah, it was packed in Troubadour. So, but I don't have any pictures. I have nothing from that show.
Huh.
Most of my pictures are from like the country club.
Yeah.
I got maybe one or two pictures from the last show we did, the Radio City, and some pictures from Perkins Palace when we supported Quiet Riot, and that's where the Steeler, the live bootleg, came from.
Oh, Reseda.
No, Perkins Palace.
Oh, because there's another one that's on YouTube. It's from the soundboard, about
Right. I'm
45
not talking about.
minutes.
No, I'm talking about an actual pressed album.
Oh, I don't know
When
about that.
After I was out of the band, Steeler played Santa Monica Civic. I think it was a New Year's Eve show, and Ron invited me. And I went there, and backstage after the show, he says, "Come to the hotel. I want to show you something." So I went over to the hotel after the show, and he goes, "Come here," and he takes me over to this on the side. He opens up this yellow plastic bag from a record store, he pulls it out, and it's a live. It's our show from Perkins Palace. It was bootlegged. The process went from the cassette tape that was in Yngwie Malmsteen's boombox on the soundboard,
Yeah.
and it went from that tape. Somehow it got to somebody's hands in Japan, and they pressed an album from it,
Uh,
and it's the show from Perkins Palace.
huh.
And then there's another album in there of Malmsteen's show in '85 when he opened for AC/DC.
Oh, okay.
So the front of the album is called Excited '83 because we had a song called Excited,
Right, right.
and a Victim of the City, and it's a copy of the picture of us from the back of the actual real album.
Yeah.
And then you turn it over, and it's a picture of Malmsteen leaning on his Jaguar before he crashed it.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
it's in two albums. They're both live, and it says like test pressing, not for sale.
Yeah.
And Ron says they're selling these in Japan. I got it in the record store.
Huh.
So
How about that?
I asked Mike Varney about it, and it was just too much trouble for him to try and track it down where it was coming from. So
Because
that's money out of our
Barney could have put it on Shrapnel, his label.
right. Well, Ron's not real happy about the how it came out, but I was pretty excited about it. No pun intended. There's
Exciting.
a couple of oops hiccup moments, but that happens sometimes, because you're human, you're alive, you make a
Right.
mistake. All right, so you keep
Sure.
going. You're playing with passion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the beauty of it all.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have it now on CD. It went from
Right.
tape to CDs, yeah, like that. So,
Right.
uh,
So it sounded like you were still friends. It was an amicable split. Why did that happen? Because Ron did that before. Steeler came from, I guess he brought that band from Tennessee.
Nashville, yeah.
Yeah, to Los Angeles, and then he fired everybody. He pulled a David Coverdale before a David Coverdale even did it, and he fired everybody, and he hired you and Mark and Ingve.
Well,
to keep-
hiring would indicate pay. There was no pay
Oh,
on a technicality.
you made nothing off that. Off
Goose
the
eggs,
the
zero
show,
zip, zero zip.
nothing.
I was lucky to be collecting unemployment from a previous day job, and so I could have a couple of dollars in my
I've heard it
pocket.
was bad, but I didn't know you weren't making anything.
Well, let's put it this way: I learned a lot of ways on how to make top ramen from Jimmy, our guitar tech, because
Yeah.
we were starving. And once a week we would have a home cooked meal. Mark Workman, our stage manager and lighting tech, would bring us over his guitar, his girlfriend's house
Mm,
in Hollywood. She was Korean, and she'd make us a big Korean home cooked meal.
nice.
And if there was any leftovers, we'd try and bring it back to the Steeler house. But there was very little chance of being leftovers. We were pretty hungry guys,
Right. And,
So it
and I've heard
was.
that about, LA at the time and, starving bands and all that. But I didn't know you weren't making any money. Holy crap.
I didn't see a penny, you
Wow.
know, and so but it kind of, I guess, builds that camaraderie. You're all in
Yeah.
this together, the brotherhood, like that.
So how
And
did the split come, or how did that happen that you were out? Or do we not
well,
want to get into that? I know you and Ron are cool now, so I don't
yeah, yeah.
imagine that.
Well,
Was
I,
it business? Was it strictly a business decision?
I think that was it. I didn't always have closure on the details of it, but I
Mm.
know that the first lineup they had done. I come to find out they had done showcases for every label in LA,
Oh,
and every
okay.
label passed. Every label just passed, and Ron kind of saw the writing on the wall, I guess, in his own words. He had to try and compete with what was in LA, and his guys from Nashville, as good players as they were, there was an element of the it factor that was missing.
Hmm.
And a guy from the Midwest or from the Southeast who hasn't had a taste of LA can interpret the songs physically with their bodies in a way that may come across differently to somebody in a hip place like LA,
Hmm.
or New York, and they look a little hokey. I'm not really inferring. I'm just saying. Ron looked at Rat. He looked at Motley Crue. Looked at Quiet Riot. He could see some of the stuff that he needed to bring Steeler to that next level. And I had just put an ad in Music Connection magazine. Of course, there was no internet, so there was no way to
Right.
track somebody's resume. And I just said, bass player from New York. I worked with Thor briefly. I knew the guys in Kiss. I'm, looking for a gig. I had just been rehearsing for 3 or 4 months with Warlord. And so I
Wow.
was playing all of this minor scale, dark, evil minor scale, like Ronnie Dio on a bad bender. It was challenging music. It was very good. It was challenging. I had never really had any experience playing, minor scale stuff. So it was a builder for me. But I put this ad in Music Connection, and Ron called me up and he said, "Your name got mentioned, by a lot of people." They said, "This guy looks like a rock star." It was always about my looks.
Hmm.
People always poked at me about, "Oh, he looks like he's got the same haircut like Punky Meadows from Angel. The guy looks like a rock star, rock star, rock star, rock star."
Yeah.
Ron said, in the LA Metal documentary, he said he wanted a band of guys that looked like rock stars.
Sure.
So Mark was already the first new guy in the band before he even swapped out the lineup. And so Mark and Ron became the partners.
Oh, so Mark was a holdover from the
Yeah,
early
Ron
iteration.
Mark replaced Bobby Eva before the whole lineup went, and then Ron took what I call a leap of faith, and he fired the whole band. And with that firing, also went the truck, the lights, the amps, the PA, anything, and all of the bells and whistles that they were known for were now all gone
Why were
because
they gone? They were owned by somebody else.
well, yeah, the Mike Dunnigan, the guitar player, his father was with it. You remember Elvis Presley and the Colonel?
Yeah.
Okay, Mike Dunnigan's dad was the Colonel to Steeler.
Ah,
So when Mike Dunnigan left, all of the bells and whistles went with him.
because they brought all that from Nashville
Nashville,
to
right?
Los Angeles.
So when I walked into the Steeler mansion, and there was the rehearsal room with the drum riser. I'm expecting to see all this gear, and I'm like, "Where's everything?" And Ross, "It's all gone, all gone." He was renting a guitar amp from SIR. I had at that point I had one of Nikki Sixx's V4B Ampeg bass cabinets and heads that he gave me
Hmm.
because when Shout at the Devil came out, he called me up and he says, "If you want my old bass gear, go to SIR. It's yours."
Oh,
So that
wow.
was very, very generous of him. And
Yeah.
I went to SIR and I picked, there was a bass cabinet and a head that was for me, which was all the stuff that Nicky was playing through the first album when they were doing all the clubs. So that was my amp. And then I wound up eventually buying an SVT head, but there was no gear, nothing, just Ron and his Flying V. That was it.
Hmm.
Uh, um, so Ron had said, yeah, you're people talk about how you look and everything. And he goes, here, he gave me a cassette tape of songs. He said, take these songs and learn them.
Hmm.
No promises. He goes, learn the songs and come back. We'll see what happens from there. I said,
Okay.
fair enough. And I took the tape back to where I was living in Hollywood. I practiced the songs. I learned them. I went back to Ron. I said, all right. And he sat down, just the two of us, I had a little pig nose amp, a practice amp. And so we would practice just together like that, just one on one. And I guess he was satisfied enough. Mark came back from Texas, got his drums out of storage, and then we started to rehearse three piece.
Hmm.
And that's where that's where we really got tight was that three piece practicing. And I had not at that point moved into their Steeler mansion, so I was
I
there
love that
all
you
the
call
time.
it that, the Steeler Mansion.
It was anything but.
Yeah, that's the
It
irony
was
of it all. Yeah.
it was a Roach Motel is what it was.
Wow.
Three gutted storefronts full of roaches.
Oh God.
I had one little room off to the side, and Ron had his corner, Mark had his corner, like that. And then when Mom Steve came in February of '83, he wound up staying in it's like the kitchen and it's this big room.
Hmm.
And the bass player Tim Morrison left his waterbed there, so Malmsteen wound up sleeping on the waterbed. But
Okay.
he had the room closest to where the roaches were in the kitchen.
Ah, lucky him.
Yeah, yeah. So and now that was life in the Steeler Mansion, and we were the only white guys in the neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
We were, if anybody knows the geography, Washington and La Brea. Let's put it this way: we were right around the corner from the original location of Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles.
All right.
So
I got you.
anybody
I got
knows what that is. Like I said, and there were times where some of the element in the neighborhood would try excursions and getting into the building, and we would come out from all these different doors with bats running, because they hear the guitars and the amps. They feel, oh,
Yeah.
let's break in here and steal something, and we
Right.
would come out from every different doorway and catch them by surprise, and they would just take off.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
after a while, they would leave us alone.
Well, and you mentioned that about the camaraderie and like a core group of guys living together, and playing together, rehearsing together. It's been described by other people as well that like bands were like gangs because you had to watch out for each other, and
Yeah.
you were in that criminal element, and so sometimes you'd have to fight it off. So, but did you find that to be the case?
Well, we never got into any physical altercations, with anybody, but it's the spirit of it was there,
Yeah, yeah,
like that. So that was about as far as that got.
gotcha.
And like I said, we did about 6 or 7 shows, and the next thing I know, after the show we did at Radio City, I was told there's going to be a band meeting the next day, and the next day came, and there was no band to have a meeting with. Ron wasn't there. Mark and I were the only ones there. Mark said Malmsteen's already left the band.
Huh.
I said, really? He says, yeah, he's gone. He's in Alcatraz. And that's when I was told, you're out of the band too.
Ah,
So I to go circle back to your question. You probably have to ask Ron because it was all his decision.
sure.
I don't want to speak for him and misspeak myself or misspeak him.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
He would be the best authority to address why everybody was out of the band. So like
Gotcha.
that.
And we touched on it. We touched on the LA scene, but I wanted to ask you more about that because
Uh-huh.
the kind of the what I touched on before about the kind of the dark side of the city, and I think there was a quote from Blackie actually in an interview. He said this city eats people.
It can
Um,
it can do that.
Yeah, it certainly was a melting pot. I mean, you had kids coming from all over the country there with a dream, but not a plan necessarily.
Let me try and put that into perspective. The first night after I got to LA and I was staying at Blackie's house, he took me out to. We stopped at Turner's liquor store right next to Barney's Beanery, and he got a bottle of vodka, and we sat there and talked, and he would down this bottle of vodka so that he didn't have to buy drinks in the club. Get his buzz on,
Sure.
And then we went to the Troubadour. We hung out there for a while, and I saw David Lee Roth was there. Whatever local rocker guys were there.
This is about 1982, right?
82, yeah, February 82. And then when we walked into the Troubadour, the first person I saw standing in the lobby before you go into the main room was Kevin DuBrow.
From Quiet.
And I remember seeing a picture of him before I left New York. I was friends with a guy named Hernando Cartwright. He was A&R in A&M Records. So he would always have me come up his office and listen to demo tapes. They'd say, there's the closet with all our albums, our whole, inventory. Pick out whatever you want, stuff like that. So he hipped me in advance to what was going on in LA when I told him I got this chance to go to LA. And he told me all about Blackie. And they had a pressing of Carlos Cavazzo's band Snow. And there was stuff about Quiet Riot. He gave me a copy of the Motley Crue, the first original Motley Crue pressing. He put on cassette for me.
Oh, Too Fast for Love.
Too fast. And I knew the whole album before I even got to LA. And then, and so I remembered Kevin DuBrow, and he says, he looks at me and goes, I'm in black leather jacket. I got my Punky Meadows hair cut on and like that. I guess I looked like a rocker or something. And it's who are you and where are you from? And as soon as I opened my mouth, they could hear I was from New York.
Yeah.
And Kevin gave me the first sage wisdom advice. And I said, well, I'm here to audition for Blackie's band. And he goes, oh, well, good luck with that. I didn't know what that meant at the time. Uh-huh. And he says, let me give you your warning. Welcome to LA. It's like the song The Backstabbers. They smile on your face, and all the time they want to take your place. That's LA. He says, there's always going to be somebody who wants your gig. There's always going to be somebody who's going to try and take your gig. And you got to watch your back. Because just like the song, they're smiling in your face and you turn around and they'll stab you in the back. He goes, that's LA. And as we know, Kevin was never one to mince words. He called it like he said it.
Right.
Like that. He was very candid about things and didn't hold back. And that was the first advice I got from anybody in LA besides Blackie was from Kevin. And I found a lot of what he said eventually to be true because I've lived through it. I have lived through that and experienced it. And that was that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I would say that was that.
So. Okay. There was another quote from Blackie I remember reading in a magazine long ago where he said, if you stick your head above the crowd, you got to expect to get a rock or two thrown at it. You remember that?
Not just a rock or two. Expect somebody to do, they call head choppers or hair cutters. If you stand a little bit taller than the next guy, they're going to come and cut. You're standing out. They're going to cut that off so you blend. You're no higher or outstanding than anybody else. It's kind of a communist mentality. How do you think of it?
Wow.
Everybody's the same. Everybody's equal. Nobody's going to stand out more than the next guy. And if you did, God help you. Yeah. Because, I had been in the Troubadour watching bands, and I'm not naming names, but I've seen some of the bigger bands standing there at the back bar watching a band on stage and mocking the hell out of them. Saying the nastiest crap about the band on the stage. And then after the show, they were in the dressing room telling the guys how great they were. So I saw it for myself, and I know that to be true.
Yeah.
And so, I'm starting to make mental notes about what's going on in this town because it was nothing like in New York. We also have the camaraderie. And yeah, there was a little bit of competition, but it was more like a bigger family. Okay. The whole attitude in New York was way different than LA, and at least in New York, if somebody's going to talk smack, they're going to tell you right to your face.
Yeah.
They don't wait for you to turn around, walk away, and say behind your back.
So
if it's going to get cleared up, it's going to get cleared up right then and there. And then it's it. And it was very different in LA. So I was, again, it was that learning curve
Yeah.
trying to deal with all the fake plastic, crap that just that the dark underbelly of LA's that
Yeah. Yeah.
you got your sharks in the record industry and the people trying to take your gig while you're still on the street. Try
Yeah.
and survive that, you know.
Oof. There was a terrible story that I read. I think I read about it somewhere. That something that happened to Steven Adler when he was young. He got lured to a house, and I guess he was drugged and he was raped and beaten. I think it was under the guise of, oh, come get some weed or whatever, buy some weed. And he
Oh,
talks about it this happening, I think, more than once. Because he was such a young guy, 14 years old or whatever, hanging out in the clubs and stuff like that. But he got taken advantage of.
I didn't know that about it happened to Steve.
Yeah, it's in his book, I believe. And then also, I came across a video about Janie Lane.
Yeah.
And there's at least one guy out there that fancies himself as kind of an internet sleuth, and he's got it narrowed down as to who may have raped Janie Lane.
Yeah, I didn't know. I knew Janie. I didn't know anything about that until well after he had passed. It was a shock to me. I mean, we hung out, we had lunch, my wife and I and him, and that never. I guess it would be something you'd bring up at lunch, but it wouldn't be a comfortable
Right.
wouldn't be a comfortable conversation either way,
Yeah.
no matter where you held it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that this happened to some of these guys. But there's predators in the business. There's predators everywhere.
Right.
And if it's a casting couch is that's just limited to the Hollywood film industry.
Do you feel that your New York City street smarts helped you in Los Angeles?
It helped me in New York. I know that. So yeah, I guess you'd say it helped me in LA. Um, yeah, you try to read people. Look at their eyes. You kind of get a vibe of what's going on, and if it don't smell right, you say, well, thank you, but no thanks, and good night, and I'll see you.
Yeah.
Like that. So fortunately, I've never had to run into anything of that nature, that level. So I'm lucky and fortunate in that way.
Hmm.
I've never seen it firsthand. I know it exists in the business. I knew people like that in New York. I knew people in New York that tried to be that way with me, and I declined my way out of it.
Sure.
So but the person I'm referring to worked in the television business.
Hmm.
But he had contacts in the music industry as well, and I managed to become one of the only people that he did not get his hooks into.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you think back to what it takes to be successful in Los Angeles on the Sunset Strip, I mean there were bands that made it, but there were so many that didn't. What was the combination? Was there kind of a perfect storm that had to happen? Did you have to have the looks and the hooks, and then also hooks, like catchy songs, and then also connections?
It's yes to all of those things, and there's I have this book by Stephen Blush. It's called Lost Rockers: Broken Dreams and Crashed Careers.
Hmm.
It's the second book I'm in by Stephen Blush, and it went in the chapter.
Oh, there you are.
About Rik Fox.
Nice.
I want to quote him here on this. Says, as a sideman, he bounced from band. He's talking about me. He bounced from band to band in the second tier of hair metal bands. Wasp and Steeler were pivotal acts, but were light years from the fame and glory of Motley Crue or Guns N' Roses. He experienced the frustration of the mid-level band that runs into a brick wall. They do everything right. The music is competent, but fame never materializes. You can have all the right hair and the clothes and the guitars and the chops, but in metal, many are called and few are chosen.
Yeah.
That's that kind of, there's only room for so many bands, and the record labels are so fickle, trying to copy the next big thing. Once Guns N' Roses came out, every label wanted a Guns N' Roses. When Great White came out, they all wanted Great Whites. When whatever the band was, except for Wasp. I don't think they wanted a bunch of Wasps when Wasp came out. Thank God. But that's kind of a little encapsulation of it. uh, you can have all the right stuff, and there's lots of talented people that just never got anywhere, and there's a lot of untalented people that are in positions that they don't deserve.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so and you said success. Well, success is a subjective term.
Right.
It means different things to different people. So to me, at least, this is a era of my life. In looking back, success is measured by the value you bring to another person's life.
Hmm.
And you can do that with any media you have, any platform. If you can do that, make a positive difference in somebody's life, that's what it's about. And a lot of us, are have not made the big riches and all the stuff that goes with it. And there's lots of reasons why. And it's really hard to nail down, because with my band Sin, we were supposed to be the next big band signed out of LA in '85. Dana Strum got in the studio. He produced a 4-song album master demo that was so hot that the record labels are like, who the hell are these guys? Meanwhile, we were already one of the biggest bands on the LA circuit. Again, we get forgotten by all the Sunset Strip authors. They don't talk about Sin. We were headlining every club we played at.
Wow.
We had all these bands opening for us, and this was my second LA lineup, and I had 3 guys from a New York band called Alien, who were on Mongol Horde Records. One of them was a guitar player that it was a roommate of mine back in New Jersey, and he, when we split, he went out to Long Island and hooked this band up called Alien, and Frank Starr, the singer, Frank's parents were like bikers, so he was really rough around the edges, but he was charismatic. He was built like a bodybuilder. He had long black curly. He kind of looked like Rob Lowe. If Rob Lowe was a real rock star, right? Frank and Rob Lowe had that lantern square jaw and like that, charismatic, good looks. Frankie, everybody loved Frankie. When he got to LA, everybody loved Frankie, and so with 4/5 of us from New York, and then our drummer Mark Benkachea from Monterey Park, from the band Prisoner, we were big. We were. I mean, just came out of Steeler. So I already had a guaranteed, box office following.
You were a draw,
right? And then our first show we headlined was the Troubadour, and the place was packed. It was packed. Everybody in the world was there to see, the new lineup of Sin. And this is before we had, the ability to market and media ourselves like we can today. And so we did really well. We took off like a rocket right out of the gate. Rubber hit the road, and we were headlining the only show we didn't headline was we played a show in Orange Pavilion in San Bernardino with Keel, and Keel headlined, and I don't know where my glasses are. Keel headlined, and we were middle support slot, and another band opened. But other than that, we were headlining all our own shows, and we did great. And Sin was huge, and we just always get forgotten by all of the Sunset Strip writers for some reason. Dana did this tape. Dana told me recently the intention was to get us signed and put us on the road, possibly opening for Vinnie Vincent, and get us out there. He was going to get us signed to Chrysalis.
Because Dana was the bass player in that band.
Right. And so they already had their foot in the door with Chrysalis. Vinnie Vincent was such a headache to everybody that he came into contact with that, he was driving Chrysalis up the wall. They were like this guy's just like impossible to work with. Wow. And eventually they booted Vinnie off his contract and gave it to Mark Slaughter. That's how Slaughter was born.
Okay.
And Dana just stayed with Mark.
Yeah.
The other thing, Dana brought Mark Slaughter in to sing the tracking vocals on our Sin album master demo. So, Mark was already in the Vinnie Vincent circle long before the stuff you read about him being some unknown kid with a demo tape with no number on it. That's all just, that's sells magazines. Mark was in the studio singing on our stuff until we got Dana wanted to keep Mark for Vinnie, to replace Robert Fleischman.
Right.
So we couldn't have Mark in our band. So when we did get a singer, at least following Mark's tracking vocals, he knew where to sing the song the way it is on the demo. And we would have been the next band signed out of LA. And the whole thing imploded as happens to a lot of people in the business, and it fell apart. You know.
Wow. Well, maybe it's a good thing you didn't hook up with Vinnie Vincent Invasion, because I remember Slaughter saying in an interview, and this was, I think it was the tour for the second record, the kind of the demise of the band. The band ended, and they were kind of one of the last gigs was they were in front of like maybe 10 people at somewhere.
I don't know about that.
Really,
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I do know.
that's a very good way to go out.
I do know it's true that in front of one of their biggest shows, right as they're in the wings, they're ready to walk on stage. Vinny turns to Mark and says, "You ain't hitting it, pal." He goes, "If you don't put it out tonight, you're out of the band tomorrow." Right before they walked on stage.
Talk about pressure. Oh my God.
That's the pressure is an understatement.
Yeah.
That was just, I mean, timing. Vinny, what are you thinking?
Right.
He tells the singer, if you ain't hitting it tonight, you're out tomorrow. You know, right before he walks on. How do you
overcome that?
Well, yeah, and go out and put out, you know, on stage. That's like a kick in the nuts.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, a lot of it is revealed in Bobby Rock's book, which I just got, Boys Gonna Rock, and he talks about the whole process of joining the band, trying to record with the band, the frustrations of dealing with Vinny, and which Dana confirmed for me, like that. And one of my songs wound up getting stolen by Vinny after Dana produced it, because he says Vinny was looking for some new amps to use in the studio. We didn't know what to go with. Dana goes, "Well, come down to the studio, listen to this band Sin I'm working with." He goes, "They're using Randall amps. You got an incredible sound."
Mm-hmm.
And I walked in when they were listening to the songs, and Vinny expressed to me that he really liked my song On the Run, and he was interested in maybe re-recording it someday. What that meant was never established. And next thing I know, on the second album, there's a song called Let Freedom Rock. That's my song, On the Run.
Oh God.
They just changed the lyrics, a little bit of the arrangement, but the hook is all the same.
Mm.
So that led to a war between Dana and I for like 40 years, And then Dana recently, they played in Branson. I was a guest performer with Stephen Pearcy's band.
Yeah, you sent me that video. That was cool.
Yeah. And then that next night, was Vince Neil was headlining. Quiet Riot played. Tom Kiefer's band. Lou Graham played.
And Dana plays with
Vince Neil. Yeah. So we started our conversation again during sound check. And then I took it to the next level, and I said, "Walk me through your bass gear, if you don't mind." He goes, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And he showed me all how his bass rig is set up. And we got to talking about the Sin demo. And I said, "I'm missing Don't Say Goodbye. I mean, I have it, but it's not a really good cut." He goes, "Come with me." And he takes me in the dressing room. He opens up his laptop, and he has on file on his laptop. He goes, "I was afraid of the day that if the tape ever broke, we wouldn't have any proof of what we did."
Mm.
And so he sat there. He goes, "Give me your email address." And he, like this, types it, and he sent me all 4 songs right off the master, which was nice. And that led to the conversation in the dialogue about what happened over the years and what was said, why it was said. And then at that point, I guess we just exchanged olive branches. And I felt the weight off my shoulders. Yeah. Now being able to, with Dana again, he explained to me that it was all Vinny. And when I confronted Mark and Bobby about it at the NAMM show, they said it was Dana and Vinny.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere in there, I'm getting half truth, half whatever. And I mean, you're looking back, look what happened to Vinny anyway. He lost everything. So
yeah, I don't know what's going on with the guy.
There wouldn't have been anything for me to sue for because he didn't have anything. You see, so karma took care of him.
Yeah,
and then I got to hear some things that the rest of the outside world never heard about Vinny. From it was intimated to me that Vinny's got he ain't all there.
Hmm.
You know, there's things that I we came into that I never knew that was pretty
Yeah.
shocking stuff. So that being said, that's kind of brings us to Sin, and you know, like I
Right.
said, we were right there, we were right on the edge, and then it fell apart.
I thought of all the bands that you've been in Los Angeles, that you were in Los Angeles. I thought that one, because I haven't been able to get my hands on like a lot of stuff from Thunderball or Flyboys, but or some of the other ones. But that one, Sin, I thought showed so much promise.
Have you heard the four songs?
I've heard I think I've maybe uncovered two out of the four, I think.
I'll send you the you know what another
The fourth
podcast.
song.
Yeah, this I did a podcast with Pariah Burke, and he was very kind and generous to take the four songs as one file and cut them into four separate files. And then I gave him all these Sin pictures, and he created this really great slideshow. So we have now officially all four songs, Sin songs from that album master demo are up on YouTube. So I'll
They
send them
are.
so you can hear them. Yeah,
Oh, what channel is it?
YouTube.
No, I know, but I mean, what's that guy's specific channel? What channel did he upload them on YouTube?
Oh, uh, hair. God, heavy hair and something
Okay.
podcast, metal podcast. But they're I am. You could just
If I
type
just
in.
search,
You can type in Sin on YouTube, but I have the links.
yeah.
I'll send them to you.
Okay. Okay.
He sent them independently up on the YouTube.
Oh,
Uh,
that's
the the
great.
the Thunderball song Gypsy Brandy is up on
Oh no,
YouTube.
I've heard that one. I did hear
Okay.
that. I have heard that.
Thank you. We never released anything with Flyboys. I just have the demo tapes of us and a live rehearsal. We had some really good material. It was a different direction for me. It was more like heavier White Snakey type blues.
Hmm.
You know, Cinderella, White Snake. It was along those lines, but
Hmm.
really heavy, and that imploded fairly quickly. So
Yeah.
that again, that's another example of running into working with the wrong people.
Hmm.
You know, it starts out great, and somebody says, "Oh, I think I could do better than this guy," and they try to take off with the whole thing, and then it goes nowhere. So,
Wow.
and
Yeah, you know,
these people,
I wrote down and you know some of the other bands that I like and appreciate and but they didn't quite get to that level, like kind of like in the same vein as Sin, really
yeah.
good, but like Leatherwolf. I don't know if you had much connection with Leatherwolf.
I used to see them play all the time at the Troubadour.
Oh, nice, nice. Rough
They were
Cut.
friends. They were more friends with my guys in Sin than I was.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, I'm friends now with Michael Alvieri, but when they were out playing, you know how guitar players tend to gravitate to each other and
Sure.
you talk about each other's style. So
Yeah, yeah.
my guys in Sin were friends with the guys in Leatherwolf. They were friends with the guys in Armored Saint and whatever, because these guys would come and see us,
Yeah.
you know, and a
Yeah.
lot of these guys all smoke pot together. So there's the icebreaker, the brotherhood of, 420
The
guys
Brotherhood of the Weed.
of the weed. Yeah. I think I
Rough
said,
Cut. Did you ever hang out with the guys from Rough Cut?
it's funny you should say that. There's a picture I think I sent to you of me and Ronnie Dio on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and
Doing
there's several
stars.
other pictures. That was started out at Irvine Meadows for the Sacred Heart tour.
I saw him
Uh,
on that tour.
yeah, and that was right after they did the We're Stars in the studio.
Yeah, yeah.
And so any of us that were hanging around backstage, Wendy Dio came and she grabbed me by the elbow. She grabbed Nader. She grabbed Cece and guys from Poison, Ricky, whoever was there, and Drake. We all came out on stage, and we did the first live rendition of "We're Stars,"
Wow.
and we all sang background on the chorus with Ronnie. The next weekend, Rough Cut was playing at the Country Club, and so Ronnie was still in town, and it was a repeat of the same process. Anybody who was up in the VIP balcony, we all came out on stage and did the same thing. That's where the pictures were taken with me next to Ronnie. It was at a Rough Cut show. So
Okay.
and after Sin broke up, I wound up in a band called Burn. Burn was also produced by Dana Strum, We're going to be connecting dots now.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were managed by Niji, which was Ronnie Dio's management.
Wendy's company.
Well, Wendy and Ronnie.
Yeah.
Okay. So our direct manager was Kurt Lorraine, who was under Wendy. Ronnie really liked Byrne because the singer Richard Perico sounded a lot like Ronnie. So he's like a Ronnie Jr. So Ronnie liked this. Meanwhile, Wendy was working with Rough Cut.
Right, because Paul Shortino sounded nothing like Ronnie Dio.
No, he's way more bluesy.
Right.
Way more bluesy like that. He's more the Janis Joplin.
Yeah, raspy. Kind of. I really dug his voice. I liked it. It was different. He was different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I knew all the guys in Rough Cut. I mean, I'm still friends with them. But as a matter of fact, Matt Thor is playing bass with Stephen Pearcy's band.
Oh, is he now?
Yeah. So I hadn't seen Matt in like decades. So when I walked backstage at the show in Branson, before sound check, Matt and I had an opportunity to catch up since the Rough Cut days.
Oh, nice.
Like that. Nice. Yeah. And so and I'm Chris Hager. I'm still friends with Chris Hager. Chris and I played together at one of the jams at the Whiskey. It was Iron Maiden night. We played an Iron Maiden song together, like that. And so, and I once in a while, I'll pass Dave Alvord in Facebook.
Oh, great drummer.
Like that. Yeah, yeah.
I love this style.
Yeah, I don't really talk to Paul or anybody else.
Amir.
I think from the band or Amir. Yeah, I haven't seen Amir in forever.
It's crazy the guitarists that they had. I mean, because first I think it was Jakey Lee.
Yeah.
And then who's that guy who he was Vivian Campbell's replacement in Dio? Craig.
Craig Goldie.
Craig Goldie.
Yeah, I'm friends with Craig. I'm friends with Craig.
I was in Rough Cut briefly, and then they wound up with the two, Hager and.
See, the thing with LA is like the revolving door. I saw so many members pass through Rat from month to month. You know, like Jakey was in the band, and then Warren's in the band, and then they had this guy in a bass. Then I auditioned for Rat. Juan Crucier was in Rat. So every other month there was another guy in the band, and this happened with a lot of the bands. It was very incestuous in LA.
Yeah, yeah. To try to get like the right combination of guys, huh?
A lot of the guys are the right.
Trying to get the better deal.
A lot of the guys are the right combination. It always comes down to chemistry. And if there's somebody rubbing somebody else the wrong way, they're going to be looking to replace you. And some guys have a stronger personality than others. Some guys, feel they perceive being territorially threatened, like that. It was so weird and stupid in LA.
Fragile egos, huh?
Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, look at WASP. That's why I was out.
Well, I gotta say, Blackie, he's I guess on this most recent tour, he does these like meet and greets, and he just sits at this little black table like this. He does not look like a happy person at all.
That's the same composure he had when I first got to LA, and he took me to the clubs, or he took me to the Troubadour. I'd be trying to mingle, and he's off in the corner like this, look like an owl up in a tree, just watching the world.
Seems miserable.
Yeah, it takes a lot to get inside his head, in his circle, to understand who he is and why he is and where he comes from and all of that. I mean, a lot of us do, but he carries some baggage. There's no doubt of that. And I just before I got on with you, Full and Bloom Music, their podcast, there was a brand new podcast came out on Don Costa, which was narrated by Nikki Buzz. I knew Nikki in LA. It was one of the rockers in LA. Nikki's talking about hanging out with Don Costa, and this is some of the stuff I knew, some of it I didn't. And then he turns about having a confrontation with Blackie in a club, and Blackie's using racial epithets at the guy, because Nikki's a black guy, and Blackie was calling him the words that you're not supposed to say.
Yeah,
and Nikki punched him in the crotch, just bang, and doubled him, and they got into this big fight. And they both got thrown out of the rainbow, out the back door and down the stairs. So I didn't know that Blackie had that racist side to him. But I will tell you that my first night at his house, after they got me from the airport, he had a little book stand by his door, and I was looking at the books. You know, you get an idea of what interests this guy, what he's reading, and he had a book about Joseph Goebbels from World War II. It was one of Hitler's, henchmen.
Nazi, yeah.
And that's where he told me about the quote about, the bigger the lie, the more incredible it is, the more people are going to believe it. And the more you keep perpetuating it, it takes on a life of its own and becomes real. Little did I know that that's exactly what he used to cover the fact that I was in WASP.
Yeah, I was going to say, kind of like what he said about you, that you were never truly in the band and that you didn't come up with the name of the band and all that.
Well, that's what people say. What does WASP stand for? And he says, we ain't sure, pal. WASP. I said it means we're all side players, which is what it came out to be. But Randy Piper and Chris Holmes have both validated that I was in the band.
Well, you have the photos.
Well, yeah, they had the photos. Well, Blackie tried to take them away from me when he was discharging me from the band. He said, "You're to give me back all the copies, your copies of the band photos." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "It's my band. They're my pictures. I paid for them." He knew exactly what he was doing. And I had taken the negatives, gone up to Sunset Boulevard. I made more copies, and I came back. This time I stashed a few of them before I went in the house, and he already knew that the negatives were gone. He was furious.
Yeah.
He goes, "Give me the goddamn pictures." So I gave him the pictures and the negatives. Like I said, luckily, the pictures we now see are the ones that I had stashed.
Yeah.
From the photos from Don Atkins' photo session, and like that. And so, he knew that he knew what he was doing by erasing me, censoring me from the history of the band. But they in Full and Bloom, they asked Randy, "Was Rik really in the band? Did he come up with the name?" And Randy goes, "Yeah, I gotta give him the credit." He goes, "Rik was in the band for a little while. We rehearsed, and I guess maybe it didn't work." Randy doesn't like to be specific about answering a question directly. He'll kind of hem and haw and hedge around it and go, "Well, I don't remember, it was this or was that. I'm not sure." Rather than say why it was,
I like that Texas accent there.
Yeah. And so, but he did say, yeah, he goes, "Rik did come up with the name." He goes, "I think a wasp landed on his hand or stung him or something." See, he doesn't remember the story yet. I stepped on the one out in the courtyard outside of Blackie's house. And I went back in and I said, "I stepped on a hornet or a yellow jacket or something." I said, "I got an idea for the band name." He goes, "What?" And I said, "WASP." And that's where it was born, like that. But he won't admit to that.
And he put the periods in
later on
to kind of create this mystique.
One of their first shows before the Troubadour, they tried it out in Orange County in a smaller club. And Chris was already in the band at this point. And I was reading an interview Chris gave where he I don't remember doing this, but he goes, "Rik Fox called the club and threatened to sue over the band name." So Blackie added the periods.
Oh, so that would cover him legally.
Yeah, I must have called the club and said, "That's my band name. They can't use that." And so, I guess in a desperate attempt, real quick, Blackie says, "Well, no, it's periods." And that left it wide open for what do you call it? Whatever you would think it means.
Yeah.
But we're all side players is actually closer to the truth.
Yeah. I got to give him props though. That I think you're talking about the Troubadour show where he has the sign that he lights on fire. I mean, that's pretty good theatrics there. I don't know if it would work today.
It was also very dangerous.
Right. Because you know what happened in Rhode Island, where I grew up in Rhode Island. I wasn't at the show, but the station.
Oh, the Great White Show.
Yeah.
The Great White Show. Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't really the band's fault. That was the guy who was doing the pyrotechnics, and that all should have been worked out ahead of time. He should have inspected the ceiling and checked all the, I worked in the film industry. I've been around the fire department. I know this stuff, but other guys in rock bands are stupid. They don't check the legalities of these things. Right. And you can see from the early videos that WASP sign, that fire was like yay close to the ceiling.
Right.
Tony was saying he could feel it burning on him when he was below it.
Yeah.
So they just had it hooked up to a gas cylinder, a gas can. They had the pipes with the holes in it. It was very
Yeah.
dangerous what they were doing.
Oof, man. Um,
So,
so I want to talk to you about drugs, because there was a story that I think you talked about. It was either written somewhere or it was on video somewhere where you were in the bathroom with Nikki Six and
oh,
because she
that's funny the way you said it.
well I
That
didn't mean it
was
that sorry I didn't mean it that way,
too
but
late now. It's already out there.
you and Nikki Six in the bathroom with
Yeah.
cocaine and
Uh,
Blackie's banging on the door. Hey, what are you guys doing?
yeah. That was the Steelers show at the Roxy. And during the intermission, Nikki Six came in, walking in with Blackie, and he said, "I wanted to congratulate you. I remember when you first got to L.A. and he goes, now you're playing in one of the biggest bands in L.A. He goes, look at us, the guys with the black hair and the leather jackets. We're like the kings of L.A. or something along those words to that
Bass
effect."
players, and you're both bass players.
Yeah. And he said, he goes, come here. And he took me in the bathroom. He shut the door on Blackie, and he opens up a little makeup compact, and he starts chopping up the lines, like that, and the straw and all. And he's going here, and I'm like, I'm in a bathroom in between shows with Nikki Six, and he's giving me, I was like, wow, how often does that happen? And then I said, why are you hanging out with Blackie? And he says, well, he goes, we're friends. We've been friends a long time. He goes, he likes to pick up my sloppy seconds like that. So I have him around for kicks. He goes, watch this. And Blackie's banging on the door going, what's going on in there? And Nicky goes, watch. He goes, shut the fuck up, old man. Like that. He's, laughing and he was making fun of Blackie at that particular moment. So like
It's
that.
interesting. There's one photo of you and Nikki. It may have even been taken just outside of that bathroom.
It was.
So there's that photo, but then the full photo actually has Blackie in it. But
Right.
He's kind of off to the side there.
Yeah. When I first started sharing that picture online, I found WASP fans cutting me out of my own picture.
Oh, God.
So I had to go back and do the writing on the picture of, says, like a watermark, so that they couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And then there's also a copy with him cut out of the picture. But so now you have the picture. Becky Minnan took that, and all three of us at that moment, she happened to be walking by. Let me get a picture of the three of you guys. But it was that moment, Blackie, in an amazing change of character, said to me, if you ever need any help in the business and anything like that, let me know. He goes, I'll help you. I'll do whatever I can. Just give me a phone call. I said, you mean that? And he goes, yeah, I do. And I said, well, then why don't you tell the truth and tell people I was in the band? And I came up with the band name. And immediately the look on his face, bam.
Yeah. So that was just lip service. He was
that's not how the game is played. I said, what game? What are you talking about? He goes, that's not how it works. And from that point on, he never talked to me again.
Meaning, if it's not in his favor, if things aren't in his favor.
Well, he also said that same thing in front of another witness who's passed away since. But he said that the same line. That's not how the game is played. But he wouldn't tell me what game it is he was talking about.
Yeah. What do you mean?
And to this day, a lot of his what's the word I'm looking for? Not neophytes, but his minions or whatever. He's got fans that absolutely hate me. They don't know me. I don't know them. But they think every time I open my mouth about him, it's like, oh, is Rik Fox complaining again? It's 40 years. Why don't you give it a break? Shut up, asshole. People ask me, tell me about what you were like what happened at the. So as long as people are like a host like yourself is going to ask me, so what happened? I'm going to talk about it, or I could say, well, I really don't want to talk about it. One or the other. I've been transparent. I tell the truth. If it's going to hurt somebody, sorry, but it's the truth. And so I told the story about what happened. And he's got a lot of fans that don't like me because of that. So that's his problem, not mine.
Yeah. So with the whole drug thing, if you didn't do drugs, were you not like in the club? Were you not accepted? Was that part of it that you had to? I
think
recreationally.
I think that applies more to the organization called the Party Ninjas, which came along.
I remember that. I remember that. Who were they?
It was Alan Krieger, drummer, Alan Krieger, Randy Castillo, Vince Neil, the guys in crew. Who it's all the guys who are signed to major labels who go out on major tours. The A level, top tier guys.
Right.
Between tours, if they're home in LA and they've got nothing to do,
yeah,
Idle Hands is a devil's workshop. So they put together these all-star jams. So the Party Ninjas would be all of these it's their good old boys club, the upper circle,
okay.
They would all get together and put on jams just for the fun of it. And they also did a lot of partying, like nose partying.
Yeah.
So that's where that all came from. And I was not part of that circle. And because I wasn't, rubbing shoulders with all the guys dancing in Peru, I was not accepted into that upper tier. And I wasn't signed to a major label. They all knew me. We were all friends.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like, okay, Rick can only get so far and then the door shuts. Kind of like that. So that's kind of where that was. So that was the drug thing. When I was out of WASP, I was staying at an apartment on Clark Street, which was a rock and roll apartment building because a lot of bands lived there. And that was where I met Nikki. The Motley Crue had an apartment right next door to the girls' apartment I was staying at. And the girls I was staying with were escorts, and so I had a roof over my head. I wasn't starving. I would sleep on the couch, but I would take care of the apartment. It was like the houseboy, like Jerry Lewis with the houseboy, And one of the girls was taking a bath in the master bathroom, and I was not in the room. I was a room away, but we're talking through the extent, what. So how's it going over there? Well, and so we're having that conversation.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, she's not answering. And I'm calling her, and there's no answer. So I go in the bathroom, and she had done a Quaalude. And she slid under the water, and she was doing it like a Whitney Houston before Whitney Houston. And the bubbles are coming up, and I'm like, holy crap, she's under the water. So I scooped her up, soaking wet. I brought her over to the girls, but I dropped her on the bed. And I started shaking her to get the water to come out of her. She's gurgling the water out. And she was just barely coherent enough to look at me and said, you just saved my life. I said, well, yeah, it's a good thing I was here, because if I wasn't, there would be a big police thing here.
Oh, geez.
And so because I was in the right place at the right time, I eventually wound up introducing her at his request. Eric Carr from Kiss, the drummer from Kiss. Yeah. Eric and I were friends. Well, Eric liked girls that had, mulatto, kind of dark-skinned girls. And this girl had, was like coffee color. He says, you went out with her. Didn't you date her or something? And I said, well, we hung out. We're nothing serious. He goes, could you introduce me to her? I'm like, yeah, sure. I hooked them up.
Oh,
they became a couple. Sometime after that, as we get further into the 80s, she wound up becoming the model on the cover of the Poison album, Open Up and Say Ah.
Oh.
Remember the Red Demon girl like this that's her.
Oh, okay.
So if I didn't save her life, not only would she have not met Eric Carr, she would never have been on the Poison album cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, those dots connect.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I like some people have said, Rick, you're like Forrest Gump. You're in all of these key places in history.
Yeah, right.
Without actually being historical yourself.
Well, I don't know about that. Come on now. I think all of these different things make you historical. How about that?
Well, that's again, that from your lips to God's ears. That's I appreciate it. But I was just in the right place. I was in the right place at the right time. I tried to be. I tried to make sure I was wherever something was happening, because I was networking. So I was if I was between bands, I'm looking for a gig. I'm trying. Who do I meet? Who can I talk to? Because being from New York, I didn't know anybody. See, so it was behooving onto me to make the best of myself, to get to know people. I guess the way I looked was a calling card. Everybody knew me when they saw me.
Right.
And so I was popular, like that. And So when the opportunity for Steeler came along, that gave me relevance. That put me on the map finally. And that first show he did it at the country club. We opened for Hughes Thrall, and it was, Ingve likes to say, it was 30 people in the club. He's got selective amnesia. The country club was packed, absolutely packed. Rat was there. I saw where Rat was. Rat was sitting with Dee Dee Keel, and all these bands. It was, they were expecting to see the Steeler that the previous lineup,
Right.
or already had a following.
Oh, all right. Because this was your first. This was your debut with the new lineup.
Yeah. And here we are months later, and it ain't your daddy Steeler. It's a whole new band, and you got people going, "Wow, who's the Malmsteen? Wow, who's the guy, the rock star over there?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, I seen him in the crowd, hanging out in the clubs," and so that kind of put us on the map, if you will.
Wow.
And set the stage.
Yeah, I love that Hughes Thrall record. That's a great one.
Yeah.
I saw Glenn Hughes maybe 2 or 3 years ago. He was doing all Deep Purple stuff. And
yeah,
I tell you, his voice is as good now as it was decades ago.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I mean, I saw this one interview with him where he was talking about being a notorious cocaine addict.
Yep.
And it's like, and he said, and then I saw another interview where he says he doesn't even remember the 80s.
Selective amnesia.
And I'm like, how the hell, this guy is just touched by God that he's at 72 years old or whatever, that he's still able to have this angelic voice.
I never got to talk to him after the show. I don't know why. I guess that whole night was a blur, went straight past.
Yeah. But
I remember during the Steelers set, I happened to look over to my stage right, the door that comes onto the stage. Pat Thrall was standing there watching us. Because, I mean, how could you not hear Malmsteen blazing away?
Right.
And Pat Thrall is an incredible guitar player in and of himself. So I'm looking on, and I swear to you, his jaw was open, was watching us. and after the show, when I was able to approach him, I said, he goes, "Where did you get this guy?" I said, "Sweden, the country that gave us ABBA,
Yeah.
So I said, "You probably don't remember me." And he goes, "Well, you kind of look familiar." I said, "Just a few years ago, you were playing with Pat Travers." I said, and you played the Palladium, New York City. He goes, "I remember that show." I said, "You had Tommy Aldridge on drums, Mars Cowling on bass."
Wow.
I said, I was down in the front row watching you guys." He goes, "That's where you look familiar from." So he actually remembered me being in the audience at his show.
Yeah.
And I said, "Here we are just a few years later.
Yeah.
We're sharing the same stage. Isn't that cool?"
You.
Yeah. I said, "And wow. I've got both of your Automatic Man albums," which was his solo bands. Okay. And that album didn't really sell a lot.
Oh, okay.
It was
I've never heard it.
Automatic Man was kind of like a psychedelic space rock with jazz fusion. The drummer was Mike Shreve from Santana.
Okay.
And he had Bayet, who I think was the bass player, kind of Hendrix, psychedelic jazz, funk, like that fusion. It was a fusion thing. But they had these albums with these pyramids and aliens on them. So I bought them because the album cover looked cool.
Yeah.
And Pat Thrall was on it. Okay, I figured it can't be that bad.
Right.
And I saw, just saying to Pat, I have both of your Automatic Man albums. That touched him. He liked that. That made him feel really nice. He goes, "Thank you so much."
Wow. Well, what a lineup you just talked about there with Tommy Aldrich and Mars Cowling and Pat Thrall and
Pat Travers.
What a lineup! My God, an all-star lineup that was.
I didn't send you the picture. I have the picture of me and Pat after the show.
After the show,
I went backstage. Yeah, I was friends with a girl whose uncle worked one of the follow spots at the Palladium. So she would get me in free at all these shows. So I was able to walk around backstage. Backstage passes were not; they were just coming into being. Some budgets would make a backstage pass, but I was able to walk around backstage and mingle with people. I saw Van Halen, their first album, at the Palladium. I was friends with the guys in the band Stars, Richie Rano, and those guys. So I saw them there. Cheap Trick, Heart. I was in the front row for Heart. I saw Nazareth. there. I was always at the Palladium. I was always seeing the rock shows that would come through town at the Palladium. So like that. And I just, again, in New York, it was an extension of, in LA, it was an extension of what I was in New York. I was always mingling and working the crowd and pressing the flesh and meeting and greeting people in New York. Once I played Max's and CBGB's, so I had relevance in the New York rock scene. So I just did what comes natural to me when I got to LA: meet people, network, and try and get the gig, like that.
Yeah. You mentioned Richie Rano from Stars. He played on a record called a band called Sweet Pain. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
I had that record. I had that record.
Mike Curcio, Corky, is a friend of mine.
Corky Gunn.
Corky Gunn, yeah. Corky, when Sweet Pain broke up, Kelly Nichols came to LA and became the bass player in LA Guns.
Right.
And Corky was their road manager.
Huh.
So he gave me a bunch of laminates, so I'd go hang out with them at whatever shows there, because it's all us New York guys together.
Yeah,
like
that. I had that record, and I was like in a couple of garage bands where I grew up in Rhode Island, and we would do that song. We would do Back in L.A.
Yeah. I still have the Sweet Pain album packed away in my collection.
I mean, those guys were like super glam, but they were from New York City.
Yeah,
which was a little different. Like they had an L.A. look, but they were.
It was weird. LA at one point was trying to copy a little bit of what New York was doing, and then New York wanted to copy what LA was doing. So the whole, with the Limelight, which was that church that was converted into a club. I used to walk past it all the time before it was a club, like that. And then that whole Nicky Camp, who was a guitar player in a band that I worked with. He became like one of the top promoters in New York in the club scene, and I'm still friends with him to this day. So we were all part of that New York connection as well. So I didn't lose it completely, and like that. So it's nice to reminisce about what we did back in the day in New York. I think I sent you pictures from the Martian Rock Band too.
Yes, yeah.
I got the scales of my scales. I look like
great. Yeah, because you're a very creative, artistic guy. So you did that, right? You designed your own costume. Is that right?
Well, when I was introduced to the guitar player, to Sebastian, who was the band leader, he says, "Come and see us. We got a gig coming up." They played with Blondie before she was, Blondie, Debbie Harry. They played at Max's, and I met him like in the summer of '75. So he says, "Come and see us play," and I did. And he just wore a purple jumpsuit. He came out of a big silver box. It looks like something you get your refrigerator in, and it lights up and it's got a red lightning on it. But it really wasn't much show wise. It was a 3-piece band. So we got to talking and because Sebi and I both were big fans of the 50s and 60s sci-fi movies, and Commander Cody and Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, Day the Earth Stood Still. We both loved all that classic campy sci-fi stuff. So we had a real nice ice breaking there. And he says, "Why don't you come?" He goes, I'm not really happy with my bass player. Why don't you come and join us? And I really wasn't that good. He was very patient. He showed me a lot of the songs are really easy to begin with. It's like 50s doo-wop meets space punk music, I guess, as the best way I could describe it. But one of the songs said, introduces each member of the band during a stop, and he goes, the drummer, he's from whatever planet. Then the bass player, he's from Mercury, and whatever the syllables were in the song. He goes, "And I'm the greatest magician in the galaxy." and he did magic stuff on stage with fire and all of this.
All right.
So I had figured, okay, now I'm from Mercury. What am I going to be? What can I bring to the table visually? And being a big fan of Kiss, and Kiss was just starting to, chart in '75.
Right.
My favorite Universal monster was the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
So I figured, what can I do space wise? And so I kind of became a reptilian before reptilian was a thing, with the conspiracy theories and all of that. And I sat down in front of my little vanity mirror in the basement, and I got all this green makeup, and I made my skin kind of like a sparkly green, and I drew scales on my chest with an eyeliner pencil. I made my eyebrows go up like Spock, and I put drops of green food coloring in my mouth. So when I opened my mouth, like Gene with the tongue,
Yeah.
everything was green in
Gotcha.
there like that. So I got a spandex outfit, which I kind of copied Ace Frehley's outfit from the A Kiss Alive with the shooting stars of rhinestones like that. And I put together this outfit, and I showed him what I did, and it's like, okay, well, now I got to up my game. So
Thanks.
Sebi started working on his costume, and he had a different makeup pattern on his face. I think he had like these weird diamonds on around his mouth or something like that. And he would shoot fire out of the headstock of his guitar. He had a flying V, and he would take the V and he cut extra wood and he would make extra wings.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, what
Yeah,
the
he
heck
had
is that?
like a sixth wing flying V,
Yeah.
which he'd bolt on before every show and then take off after the show. And so it was a friendly competition thing. If I bring something to the table, he'd bring something. And so we only increased what the show value was. And because we liked the movies, in the back of like the monster magazines, there was a company that would sell 8mm films on these little reels of segments from these various sci-fi movies. So I borrowed my dad's movie camera, my movie projector, and I would turn the camera around behind us, behind the amps, and I would project the movies up onto the wall. So there was scenes from Commander Cody, and he's flying through the air, the Rocket Man, and scenes from Day the Earth Stood Still with Gord. And we were doing this before anyone else was doing this.
Yeah, you had the first video wall.
Exactly. This rear screen projection like that. And he would shoot fire out of his guitar. And then he taught me how it was done. He knew all of the magic shops in Times Square where all the Broadway magicians bought all of their equipment from. And he showed me how to do it. And I incorporated it into my hand. So I was able to shoot fire out of my finger like a flamethrower. Like that, and I would take a mouthful of beer while people were looking at him. It was all misdirection, like a magician. People would look at him, and I would get ready to do something, and I would look at me, and I'd do something, and then he was getting ready to do something.
Yeah.
And so with the green food coloring in my mouth, I have a picture you haven't seen yet. I'm sitting like this, and there's all this green shit running down my neck. If you take a mouthful of beer, let the foam gather in there. So I would kind of replicate Gene Simmons spitting the blood. And I'd open my mouth and all this green, I look like green rabies coming out with this foam running down my chest.
Foaming at the mouth, yeah.
The shock value in the audience was awesome. It was great. It was really worth it, to get all this shit all over me. But then to do it on stage, it's like, like a mini version of a Kiss and on a local level. And the people dug it. It was great. It was awesome. So, I was now accepted into the ranks of the Max's Kansas City veteran, musicians. And I got to rub shoulders, with the Ramones and Wayne County, Tough Darts, Richard Hell, the Dolls, the New York Dolls. I got to be friends with all of these bands that were playing the New York rock scene. You see,
wow.
And then we did CBG. We did the same thing at CBGBs, like that. So I was part of that scene as well.
What? When did you decide that you wanted to become, a musician, a rock star, however you want to put it?
Glad you asked. It was in the late 60s. My cousin had already gotten me the first Steppenwolf album for my 13th birthday. And you couldn't pry me apart from that album with kerosene hand grenades. I listened to that first album over and over and over and over again. And then when they finally were on television, I saw Steppenwolf on Ed Sullivan. I saw Steppenwolf on the Smothers Brothers. I saw Steppenwolf on American Bandstand. And every time I saw them, and their bass player, Nick St. Nicholas, and he would have this, he had this buckskin Western fringed jacket. And he had Rickenbacker, and he's just kind of like grooving along. I said, that's cool. I want to be that guy. I want to be just like that. And he also had a Gibson EB3 bass as well. I always wanted one of those. Uh, but when I saw Nick St. Nicholas on screen, I mean, that's it. I want to be a bass player. I want to be like this guy. And that was I've always said that he's my first influence in
So
wanting to be a bass player.
something about the bass player that just you were drawn to rather than the drums or the guitar or the lead singer or anything like that.
The bass just called out to me. It touched my soul. And every time there was music on TV or music playing, and I pick out the bass line and tell my dad, "There's the bass right there. Hear that? Those notes? That's the bass." So it was like Bubba in Forrest Gump about shrimp.
Right.
We got this kind of shrimp, that kind of shrimp, this kind of shrimp, that kind. I said, "Dad, there's the bass line that song. There's the bass line that song. There's a bass. There's a bass. There's a bass." It's like, all right, I get it. But we didn't have that.
I like the bass. Okay.
We didn't have it's all about that bass. We didn't have a budget for me to be a musician. So my parents had split up, divorced after a year after I was born. So the guy that my mother hooked up with, he owned two rock clubs in Long Island, him and his partner, and they managed a couple of rock bands. So the college crowd in the clubs was really big in the late 60s, early 70s. And this is like, when Carmine Apple, not the Young Rascals, but
Vanilla Fudge.
Vanilla Fudge, thank you. They were real big on the Long Island club scene, and bands were trying to emulate them. Liquid Smoke being one of them. Liquid Smoke was one of the bands that my mother's second husband managed. So he took me to a concert. He had tickets for Richie Havens. It was technically my first concert. I didn't know anything about Richie Havens. He was too acoustic, too much protest songs, stuff like that. I got the energy, but So he took me out to there's a chain of music stores in New York called Sam Ash.
Okay.
And so he took me to Sam Ash, the main store out in Hempstead, Long Island. And he says, "What can we get this guy? He's starting out. He's going to be he's new, wants to be a bass player." And I looked up on the shelf and I saw that Rickenbacker bass. And I said, "That bass right there, that's what Nick St. Nicholas plays." And he says, "Well, how much is that?" And I guess they talked amongst themselves. And even back then, I guess it was too expensive for.
They're pricey, aren't they?
Yeah. It was the 4001 model. So, like Chris Squire plays. And Paul McCartney used the Magical Mystery Tour, just to give you a visual. So he said, "Well, he's just starting out. Do you have anything maybe in the basement, something a little bit more economical?"
Bottom row.
Guy comes back with a I think the brand was Kent. It was a Kent bass, and it had black vinyl. It was vinyl wound strings, which there was no tone. It was like a completely dead. Would have been great to record in the studio with. But it's just dun 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 dun, dry dead tone.
Yeah.
And so he got me that, and my dad took me to Radio Shack, got me a little Radio Shack amp because you can't have an electric guitar without an amp.
Right.
And I never took formal music lessons where you couldn't afford it. I would just try to play along to the records down the basement.
Self-taught.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, like I said, I'd play the records, and I couldn't tell you an A from a G, from an E, from an F, and I would just try to match the notes from what I was hearing over time, hit and miss, like that. And of course, there's my grandmother upstairs stomping on the floor, going, "Turn it down, turn it down." So that was being stifled. Eventually, I started to rub shoulders more with young guitar players who were in the neighborhood where they have bands playing at this dance or that dance. And I would try to learn from what the guitar players could show me until I got to that point with joining a Martian rock band where Sebastian just told me, "Here's the neck. Here's what it is. Here's where the notes are. You can do this, that, this, that, this, that." And that's pretty much, he opened up that can of worms for me.
That's
so I knew the bit. And then from that point on, anytime I learned stuff, I always worked off a guitar player. So when I got to our after Martian rock band, when I joined Virgin in Jersey, I worked with their guitar player, Keith, and he taught me a lot more. Because the singer, Ian Chris, wanted me in the band no matter what. I had the it factor. He goes, "I don't care I don't. The guitar player goes, I don't want him in the band. He sucks. The singer goes, I got faith in him. He's got something we need. Work with him, teach him, and that's where it started.
Oh, that's
You
awesome.
know, so you get to a point now where you can hear something and know exactly what it is, where it's going. You know, once you understand the language, you can kind of tell where it's going from one point to another. So I can see it in my head like that.
Mhm.
And of course, over the years, I would practice to bass players that I admired. Dennis Dunaway from Alice Cooper, Gary Thane from Uriah Heep was one of my favorites. Jimmy Lee from Slade. It's a huge list, you know, and all of the bass players that Steppenwolf had subsequently. Each different guy played a different style. So you know, I just listen to their language, what they're saying, and I just try to do the same as what my heroes did, like that.
Gotcha. So here's a question I've been meaning to ask you. What killed heavy metal in Los Angeles? Was it in fact grunge? Because people blame it on grunge, some people blame it on Janie Lane writing Cherry Pie. Or he said that. He said, I wish I never wrote that song.
You know,
Uh,
all the way to the bank. He wish he never wrote that song. All the way.
you know
They
what I'm
always
saying?
say
Like there's a big debate going on that's been going on for decades as to what it was that what killed heavy metal in the Sunset Strip.
it put a gun to its head and hung itself. You know,
How so?
six of one, half a dozen of the other. You know, it became so not homogenized. It was just everybody was the scene is only so big, and everybody's copying everybody else, trying to be different, and all they wind up doing is copying they're copying themselves,
Hmm.
so to speak. You know, if everybody grew out their hair, then all the bands grew out their hair, and if somebody started wearing ripped jeans, everybody started wearing ripped jeans. When I put that light up, the first lineup of Sin together in L.A., I'm like, okay, we look as harmless as the Brady Bunch. We need an effective stage look.
Right.
What are we going to look like? And I just happened to be watching MTV, and the Police video came on for Synchronicity 2.
Right.
Okay, there's Sting. Oh, he's hanging from the wire, and as the camera pulls back, he's got all these clothes that are all shredded,
Yeah, all the fringe is there.
and the
Yeah.
wind is blowing, and it's like a post-apocalyptic scene. I said, "That's it. Now, if we can get a whole band to look like that, now we're talking." So I went out and bought all this fabric, and I started making these shredded outfits.
You
And
designed them.
each guy would have his own color, like that. I had black and red, keyboard player black and white. This guy had black and purple and black and yellow, so on. And meanwhile, Twisted Sister came out of New York with a very almost exactly the same look. And
Hmm.
and Dee Snider's wife was designing their outfits, and
Yeah.
there was no internet, so I don't know how two bands on either left coast and right coast could wind up having the same exact type of costuming without seeing each other,
Yeah.
because I didn't know that they looked like that until they came out and you could see them with those outfits
Right.
like that. And so I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, but I created these shredded outfits. And what I'm going with this is, as you become popular with the audience, the first thing is all the girls have to copy you.
Hmm.
So they come out with their spandex and they start shredding up the t-shirts over themselves,
Ah.
you know, and you can do it in stripes, and then you pull the fabric and it looks like shredded gills. And
Sure.
and
Yeah.
people, so they started copying, and the audience was copying what we were wearing
Oh.
like that.
Cool.
And so, you know, you become influential as a visionary, as a kind of a costume designer, because I did everybody's costumes. I did the hair, I did the makeup, I had played bass, you know, and wrote songs. But nobody ever knew I did all this other stuff behind the scenes like that.
I
And
mean,
and
that was
so
your band. Sin was like you,
yeah, yeah.
right?
And so what's interesting is one of our first shows, David Lee Roth showed up. And we're talking with the dressing room of the Troubadour upstairs, and he's looking up and down at me like that, like he's just checking out my outfit, which was black with red shredded fabric over it, and we had some small talk, and he said, "I heard about you guys. I want to come check you out, and I'm here for the duration." Yada yada yada. And then 2 weeks later, after they shot the jump video, it comes on MTV. What do you think David Lee Roth is wearing? Black spandex pants with red shredded fabric on them.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
So
This was in 1984 or
yeah,
80. Yeah.
80, well, I started 83, but then into 84. I had revamped some of the costumes and streamlined them. But David Lee Roth was copying my outfit. And then sometime later, when Kiss dropped the makeup and they had to come out with some kind of flashing, I looked at Paul Stanley and he's got car reflectors and shredded fabric and all this others. And I'm like, they're doing it again.
Yeah, they went real glam. Yeah.
So what they do is the big bands, their costume designers would come to the clubs and see what the bands who's got a buzz and see what they're wearing, make their notes, and go back and design something for the big stars. And then us guys who weren't signed get blamed for copying what the big guys are doing when they actually copied us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got Fleur Theomeyer was a big one. I forgot the name. The girl was working with Ozzy Osbourne. One of them gave me a book all about the history of theatrical costuming.
Okay.
And it's Lita Ford's in there. Every band you could think of is in there. Ozzy, everybody except us. And it's all of these. What's the word I'm looking for? It's the whole history of theatrical stage costuming as it went into rock and hard rock and heavy metal and like that. So, and it's sitting on my coffee table. That's just, I grew up with bands like Kiss. I was watching Kiss before they were Kiss. Angel. I was influenced stars. I was influenced by these bands back in the day when these guys on stage were gods, and we were just the kids in the audience. And when I got a chance to be a god on stage, it wasn't long after that grunge came in and that whole look was banished.
Right.
And so everybody looked like everybody else.
Yeah.
Cargo shorts, combat boots, flannel shirts.
Yeah.
What is that?
Right.
That people pay money. They want to see a show.
Well, see, here's my theory. My theory is that the music reflects the times. So the 80s, things were booming in the 80s. We had a lot of prosperity, and it was sex, drugs, rock and roll. It was all about, the music reflected that. The music was mainly about partying and having a good time. You get into the 90s and we kind of slipped into a bit of a recession. And so the next generation of kids who are the creators, they're creating music, they were just depressed.
Exactly.
I was so in 93, 94, I was working as a security officer at a hospital in Rhode Island. And there was a girl who had carved Kurt Cobain's name into her arm.
Oh.
I had to kind of babysit her. She was in a room and I had to just sit and watch her, make sure she didn't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I was born in 1970. So at the time I'm 23, 24. She looks at me, she goes, you old people, you just don't know what he meant to us. Oh my God. So the 90s were a period, were kind of a dark time. And so the music reflected that. That's my theory. I don't know. What do you think of that?
Well, there's two schools of thought. There's the 80s killed itself because everybody was replicating at a rapid pace. And then grunge just came in and put the nail in the coffin.
Okay.
I think it's probably 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, to be honest with you. I saw the writing on the wall. I had Thunderball at the time, 1988, 89. And we were one of the last, I don't know, that I could remember, concert type stage bands with elaborate costuming and whatnot. and the wave was coming in with the shredded cut jeans and the straight hair, no hairspray. The layers were growing out. The whole glamorous aspect of the music scene was going somewhere else.
Hmm.
You know, Gene Simmons says most people listen to the music with their eyes,
Mm,
and that's easy for him to say coming from Kiss. And
of
Kiss is
course.
one of the biggest theatrically influential bands of our time, of our
Right.
generation, like that. And so it stung. It hurt to see the people turning away from that. So I mean, I grew my hair out like to one length. I started to grow the facial hair. I didn't want to go grunge though. I could not identify or resonate with, you know, the greasy hair look, the flannel shirts, the
Yeah.
cargo shorts, the combat boots. That wasn't me, you
Hmm.
know, and I didn't feel comfortable with that. My look actually when I was in Wiseguys was more like Al Jorgensen from Ministry, you know,
Yeah.
early Ministry.
Okay.
I
So,
haven't.
well,
Yeah,
what?
you haven't seen that picture. My hair's just all one length. I have my beloved Cycle Sluts from Hell T-shirt on. We did a photo session, and it was guns. We were all guys with guns.
Oh,
So
like gangsters, like
we
old
took all
gangsters.
these. Yeah, we took all of these promo shots with, you know, they weren't real guns, but
Tommy
you know,
guns.
with you know, guns and stuff like that. Yeah, and I you know, like I said, I had the facial hair, I had the bandana with the mirrored sunglasses in them, like that. Kind of faster pussycatish, but not as glammy as that. And I was going more for the leather look. You know, I identified always with leather because of Steppenwolf, and like that, and that was the kind of look where I went into, and you know, I gave it one last couple of hurrahs, and then, you know, the music industry wasn't fun to be in anymore.
Yeah.
There was nothing enjoyable in it for me, so I stopped. I got out, and I started working in the film industry. At least I was drawing a good paycheck, you know, more than I did made music. And so I was out of the music industry on this hiatus for, you know, about a decade or so,
Yeah.
and nobody knew that. You know, they figured, oh, Rik Fox hasn't done anything in years. Well, that's because I'm making a living. I'm you know, doing something else, and that's where I got involved with the Ren Fairs, and from Ren Fairs it became Living History, and then from Living History, I helped my dad helped me rediscover our ancestry, and I created the first recognizable the Polish winged hussar knights of the 17th century. That impression in the U.S. And I just did, you know, I moved laterally. I took the
Mhm.
football and I went laterally, and I did something else away from the music scene. So when I got back to around 2011, 2012, I started to try and get back into the music scene. It was like they took the wagons and made a circle. I said, "Don't let him in." It was a little difficult to get back access into the music scene.
Yeah.
And, you know, and some friends of mine in various bands, you know, they started having these jams, you know, and say, "Well, come on and come jam with us." So I'd get on, I'd play with Great White, not Great White Lie, or you know, Fifi LaRue's band, or this band or that band. So I started getting active again by doing these jams with these other bands and cover songs. You know, everybody would do cover songs like that, and that's how I started to get back out again.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Do you ever think, because you live in Missouri now, is that right?
yeah, yeah.
Do you ever think about, oh, maybe I should like put an outfit together and we'll do some weekend warrior kind of stuff, like on a semi-regular basis.
I really wish that was possible. There's no music scene in Missouri like there was in L.A.
Sure.
Or New York. You know, it's the Bible Belt. It's the Midwest. It's St. Louis was the place where a lot of the big headliners came to play and pass through. Nobody stayed here.
Mhm.
You know, as best as I can estimate. Springfield has somewhat of a music scene. I'm friends with several of the bands there now. I've gotten up and jammed with Machine Gun Symphony a few times. Excuse me. They're like an 80s tribute, rock 80s tribute band like
Nice.
that. So they play the stuff that the girls want to hear. It's popular, and you know, they draw a crowd, and they play a lot. They are like, it's like being on tour. They play everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
like that, and they make a fairly good money. But other than that, there isn't a whole hell of a lot musically going on. When we
Hmm.
first were coming to Missouri, my late wife knew about Missouri. She grew up in Joplin and St. Louis, so she knew the lay of the land better than I did. And she said, "There's a big music scene in Branson. You should be able to pick up a gig easy in Branson." Come to find out, Branson's like family dinner theaters.
Yeah,
It's
like
not. It's
like
not.
country
Well,
stuff.
country and like the Osmonds, or the biggest hits in the '70s. It's like I said, family dinner
Yeah.
theaters. It's family friendly, not hard rock. So that was a pin in the balloon. And then since she passed away in 2022,
Yeah.
and I'm just kind of sitting there going, going, now what am I going to do? What next, Lord? Quo vadis? What's next?
Hmm.
You know, the Retromania live thing was advertised last year that they was having an '80s thing,
Oh,
and I
I'm
started
not
looking at the
familiar with them.
ads. I was looking at the ads, and it was like I told you, Quiet Riot, Vince Neil,
Oh,
Stephen
okay.
Pearcy,
Oh, that's what
Lou
that was.
Graham,
Okay.
Night Ranger, Tom Kiefer, Tiffany,
Oh,
Pauly Shore,
oh my God.
Bobby Brown. It was all this '80s stuff, this big package. It was going to be like over the course of a week. Each band would play. Several bands would play each night.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I saw that, and I contacted Piercy, and I said, "Hey, I'm out here in Missouri now. I'm only about 2 hours away from Branson." I said, I'd like to come and see you. Can I come hang out with you guys?" He goes, "Yeah, sure, that'd be great." Yeah, we haven't seen each other since the '80s.
Yeah.
And he called me back after that content. He goes, "Hey, you want to jam?" And I said, "You mean like with you guys on stage?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So he says, "Learn You Think You're Tough." So that was the video where they had all their buddies, starring in that video.
Yeah.
Um, Ozzy, Motley Crue, everybody was in that video. So he says, and I learned the song. I watched them on YouTube so I could get where the cues were, the live cues. And I drove down to Branson, and I met Donnie Frizzell. Donnie is a promoter out of Oklahoma who is trying as best as he can to bring the rock element back into this area of the country, of
Right.
Missouri, Oklahoma, Tulsa, like that. There's somewhat of a market in Tulsa, which is about 4 hours away from me. And so, because I'm in this little pocket in the South Central Missouri, away from everything, and I mean, it takes like an hour and a half for me to get to Springfield.
I
So
mean, that can be good in a way, to be away from everything.
yeah.
But I mean, you're a very sociable guy, so maybe not.
Well, there's nothing sociable in this area, like that.
Hmm.
It's family. It's all families around here. It's a little town. It's like Mayberry.
Hmm.
But so I went down and I hooked up with Stephen Pearcy and the band, and I did the song with them as you saw in the video,
Yeah, yeah.
and that put a nice resume notch on the bedpost for me. And I played the Mansion was called. It's big theater, big theater,
Hmm.
and it was just fairly crowded. It wasn't sold out, but it was fairly good. Anyway, Donnie's trying to bring this rock element back into this area and
That's
like that.
great.
So it just you got to create a demand, and so this area of the country needs some kind of hype to really get the kids excited, because there's only so many people that can come out for these kind of shows. And to back it up, before that, I saw Uriah Heep. It was Uriah Heep and Saxon
Oh, right, right.
just playing here in St. Louis, and that's in Springfield at a very old classic theater. The place was packed, and most of the people there all had gray hair.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
were all from the
Got to
'70s.
get the young kids involved somehow.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm watching like 60, 70-year-old women with gray hair going like this, and singing the words. I'm
For
watching them.
groupies.
I don't know. I mean, they were there with their husbands and like that. But snowbirds, like, snowbird age,
Sure.
like that, retirees. So and Saxon kicked ass. They owned. I mean, both bands were great. It was like watching the concerts back in the '70s. Walls of amps, all kinds of effects and whatnot, and the lights and the smoke and the fog. It was like being young again, And Uriah Heep kicked ass. They were great. All
Yeah.
the songs you remembered that you dug, they played. So there was a turnout for that, but in Branson it was a little bit less. And I don't, you know, We got to think of something different,
Right.
maybe some kind of acts to bring that crowd to Branson,
See,
because that would be great.
there's a festival not far from my house. I haven't been to it yet, but it's in Columbia, Maryland. It's called the M3 Festival,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's a it's 2 days. And I've been watching. I haven't gone to it, but I've been watching over the past like maybe 3 or 4 years their lineups, and they of course they're gonna go for the Stephen Piercy's and the Night Ranger and things like that. But the problem that I see is now they're getting into the tribute bands rather than having the young up and comers who are going to be who hopefully someday will move up the ladder and be the stars.
Yeah.
Instead of nurturing those guys, the young guys, they're pretty soon we're gonna have an AC/DC cover band and a Van Halen cover band and who I don't want to pay money to see that.
That's because generationally, there's no new bands coming out with that kind of material.
Yeah, but I've been discovering some. It's just that rock is kind of underground now. Rock and
Yeah.
roll, heavy metal is underground. Like I've interviewed bands from Florida, and there's one I just found out about today from Louisiana, and like these guys sound like they're plucked right from the 80s because they've
One of
listened
the
to your stuff.
yeah, one of the bands that I didn't see them play. They opened up one of the nights at the Retromania Live Fest. I didn't see them, but their manager is, I think he was the stage manager for the Retrofest, Tom Green. He's working with a young band. I think they're out of Oklahoma. They're called Eyebolt,
Okay,
Eyebolt, Eyebolt.
Eyebolt.
And
Okay,
these
I
guys
haven't
look
heard
a
of them.
bunch of young guys. They look like they just stepped off the Sunset Strip in the '80s.
Okay, I'll have to look them up.
They love what we did. They're trying to bring that back and
Yeah.
emulate that, and they've got the look. They look just like we did with the flashy outfits. Like I said, I haven't heard their music, but and when they were introduced to me, they were now they're asking me about what was it like in the '80s, and this band and that band, and wow, tell us more about it, Dad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Tell us
Oh, yeah.
tell us the stories, Grandpa.
See? Told you were a
But
legend.
yeah, but this is an example of one of the bands that are up and coming that are trying to bring that back. Another band out of the Springfield area is called Paralandra.
Hmm.
Okay, this band, it's an original band. They're not covers. Well, they do some covers, but they're an original. But they've got like X amount of albums. They're incredible. They're absolutely friggin' incredible.
All right.
The singer, Cassandra Carson, one of the most amazing voices on a woman you have ever heard in your life.
Okay.
It's like you put Janis Joplin, Ann Wilson, and I don't know who else in a blender, and that she hits some of the most incredible notes. And she plays lead and rhythm guitar.
Wow.
And her father, Paul Carson, plays lead guitar right to her off on her right, and he is right out of the '70s. I've told him, I said, your style and your tone takes me right back to Leslie West and Mountain and guitar players of that era. Paul Kossoff from Free, he's right in that wheelhouse of the '70s, and he's got hair down to his waist. And how many people get to say, well, I get to play on stage with my dad, we're rocking out,
Yeah, that's
like that. And
fantastic.
he's got the stacks of guitars, and this band tours constantly. They're like crisscrossing the U.S. every week of the year, constantly,
Wow.
nonstop. Great band, incredible band. If you haven't heard them, look up Paralandra. They're great.
So I
So,
I I found a few one band out of Tampa, Florida, Midnight Vice.
mm,
Midnight Vice. I'll send you their video.
yeah,
Another one right from the 80s.
yeah.
And then a band, like I said, I just found out about them today called Void, 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 from somewhere in Louisiana. And
See,
and they do more of like it's like the lead singer has like a puffy shirt. But he wears the puffy shirt. Well, hey, come on, you're theatrical. He wears the puffy shirt, but they're doing thrash metal.
okay. The puffy shirt.
You know what I'm talking about. The frilly white puffy shirt.
Okay, okay. You mean poofy?
Poofy, yeah, yeah. Or
Okay,
Seinfeld called it the puffy shirt.
okay.
Yeah.
All
You,
right.
you know what I'm talking about. It's a frilly kind of thing.
I
But
have
then he's
shirts
got
like that.
his,
Renaissance fair shirts.
yeah, then he's got the gun belt, the bullet belts and
Oh,
then
you know who did that look was Adam Ant.
okay, okay.
Adam Ant, you wore the frilly shirts
Yeah.
and the belts like that, and he was mixing them. That was the new romantic era, you know, with a couple of stripes on the face and the hair off to the side, like Stephen Piercy. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
I that was the there were bands in that era around Adam Ant that were wearing that kind of look.
So these guys are kind of like if you take Phantom of the Opera and then put it together with the early thrash bands,
Well,
Exodus and
Prince and the Revolution did that.
Prince had the puffy shirt, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So that's this band Void that and that apparently they just got a record deal, whatever that means. Um,
Yeah, there's
they're
no
very
big record. Well, the record labels that we remember are not around anymore.
right.
You know, the only
Right.
people that get signed to that corporate level are you know the rap and the pop rap. You know, your upper rap artists
Well,
and your
apparently that's still the music du jour or whatever, it's the most popular one. But do you think that rock and roll can make a comeback, Rick?
we'll never see it. In my estimation, we'll never see it like it was in its glory in the '80s. It's gone. You know, that mentality is gone.
Yeah.
We're just the remnants of what was left of it. You know, and there's this whole new generation that hasn't been exposed to it are not going to know what it is. You know, I'm told there is a contingent of it, like on TikTok. There are kids who miss the '80s, and they look back at the pictures and they freak out over it, and they want to try and emulate that.
Right.
I haven't seen it myself. I'm not on TikTok, but I'm told that there is this element out there. It's just a matter of I don't know. I don't. I think a lot of us are we're old enough at the point where we're not really into doing that anymore, and we would look funny doing it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like watching Mick Jagger. I mean, he can't wear what he wore in the '60s and '70s, and
He's still trying though. He's still trying to do the moves.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's
So we're a little
81.
we're I mean I still dress a little flashy on stage, but I mix it up a little. I got a little leather, a little this, a little of that.
Right.
I don't.
Well, now
It's
you
getting
got
hard.
bell bottoms as opposed to like skin tight.
Well, that's my throwback to the '70s. I always dug bell bottoms. And, I don't feel like tucking my pants and boots anymore, like that. So looking like Flash Gordon or something. So the bell bottoms are always acceptable. Bell bottoms are always cool and they always groove with whatever's going on. So I found some really interesting patterns and I got some stuff with that. And like I wore in the Steeler video, I have two different kinds of pants on and I wore them in the Stephen Piercy gig. I wore the pants with the roses on them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's it's not like I have a big selection. So
Well, and we brought it back around to Steeler again. So Rick, I really sincerely hope that we see you again um, with Steeler in some format, whether it's another song and video. I mean, we can only hope, something bigger, an album, a
yeah,
tour, something.
like I said, from your lips to God's ears. But
Come on, Ronnie baby.
it's all in Ron's hands.
Ronnie baby, you got to
He
deliver.
he's got to sing it, so it's up to him.
All right, all right. Well, Rick, thank you so much. Yeah, before we go, where can people find you? Where are you hanging out the most on the interwebs?
I'm hanging out right here with you. I'm in Facebook.
That's your main haunt.
Yeah. I mean, my late wife, she had a Twitter account. She had an Instagram account. She had 2 or 3 different Facebook accounts. I don't know how she had time for all of those and take care of the horses, which I would help her with. I barely have enough time in a day just dealing with Facebook. Friends have been telling me, you got to get on Instagram. You got to get on Instagram. All right. So I'll get on Instagram at some point. I'll get off my ass to do it. It's just a matter of doing it.
Hmm.
Other than that, I'm pretty much I'm in Facebook, so I have a couple of different pages and like that, and that's just pretty much where you'll see me. I'm pretty high profile in Facebook, and I post a lot of stuff on my page. It's news in the world besides music and what I'm doing musically.
Hmm.
There's lots of stuff going on around us in the world. I think people should be aware of and and see the visibility of what's going on right now because it
Sure.
affects us all. So, like a talk show host, I'll see some news headlines and I'll post them on my page and go, "Hey, what do you think of that?" Oh, hey, look, I check this. And that annoys some of my musician friends. They're like, "Why don't you just use it to promote your music?" I said, "How much? What have I got going on?" I can only promote so much musically until something else happens.
Right.
Oh, that reminds me. Before I forget,
Okay.
the last project that I recorded something on. Uh, there's a recording artist out of Norway. His name is Stian Pian Thorsen,
Okay.
and he's had an all-star recording project for the last several years. Uh, Bruce Kulick's on it. I'm on a song with that. We're waiting for Mark Bowles to do his vocals
Oh,
on it.
Ingve's old singer.
Ingve, yeah, right. There's another Ingve connected dot.
Hmm.
And it'll be the third song I've recorded on with Vinny Appice.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
I did two songs on the Jim Crean album years ago with Vinny Appice, and this is the third song Vinny's on, and I'm on with him, and it's a tribute to Deep. It's kind of a tribute or a tip of the hat to Deep Purple. The song is called Plum, like the fruit,
Yeah.
and the reason he is in the lyrics. Stian said there's two words in the chorus: cobalt and magenta versus cobalt and magenta. And when you mix those two elements together, they form a deep purple, a plum
Hmm.
color. So, if you're into engineering and that kind of thing, working with metals and whatnot. So all the song lyrics are deep purple song titles, all strung together to make a song.
Oh, wow.
So that's very clever.
It's pretty inventive.
It's very, very clever. And
Yeah.
so Stian sent me the rough cut of it. And he said, "Here, put your bass to that," and I did. I recorded it. I sent it back to him. He liked it, and so we're just waiting for Mark. Mark is with a project right now called Red Raven, and they're kind of an up and coming, another band like we were talking earlier that should be out there, hard rock, heavy metal kind of
Yeah.
a band. So Stian said we're waiting on Mark to do his vocals for the song for Plum because he's doing like a duet with Stian like that. The guitar players and the keyboard player, forgive me, I can't remember their names. They're bigger artists in Europe. They're European guys.
Okay. Gotcha.
But I Stian has it posted somewhere on his page of who we are that are on that particular song. So we're waiting for that to be done and in the can and to be published and put out. That was the last thing
Nice.
I played on. And like I said, Ron just sent me another song to work with like that. And so
That's
it's
great. So
slow.
you got a couple things, a couple
It's
irons
a
in the
it's
fire.
it's not a river, it's a trickle.
All right.
It's just enough to wet your fingertips on, but not to drink,
Yeah.
yet.
Gotcha.
So
Well,
that
that's
kind of
good.
brings us up to where I'm at now.
Yeah. No, that's and that's all great news, Rick.
Thank you.
Happy to hear it, and I'm sure all the fans are as well.
Yeah.
That
And, and and now you
more of the
got
Rik
pictures to
Fox,
put
the
in this.
better.
You got pictures to put in the slideshow of the interview of the podcast.
Yeah, yeah, I hope to do that. I mean, what I really like to do is get this out there as quickly as possible, but um yeah,
Take your time, work with it, work with it.
if I can do that too, yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
I was looking forward to going to Rockin' Pod the next year, but there's some hiccups, and I guess I didn't get invited back. So
Ah,
whatever, I wanted to catch up with the podcasters that I didn't have time for last time because
yeah.
we had Keelfest, so I had to leave real early to for sound check, and I didn't go. I missed a lot of Rockin' Pod because we were playing.
Mm.
Um, so, but they're planning it for next year for 2025. But I haven't been asked back. But whatever.
Well, you might just have to barge your way in.
Well, I mean, I could get in. They offered me plus one of passes, but the overhead for me to go to Rockin' Pod is I have to put my cats in boarding. So there's that. There's your gas, back and forth. It's like $200 in gas. There, last time they gave me a hotel room, which was very generous and nice. This time, yeah, get your own hotel. So,
Yeah, then it starts to add up.
Well, $299 a night, for several nights. I ain't doing that. So my overhead is like way too much just to go stop in and say hi. That's Nashville. That's like a 6-hour drive for me to Nashville.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, and I have a meet and greet merch table of my own. I got Rik Fox shirts and Steeler stickers, and I got guitar picks. I got all kinds of merch, and that would at least help offset some of the sting, the financial sting. A lot of us do that when we go to a convention or an expo. Then we have our meet and greet merch table, and I wasn't even able to do that much at the last Rockin' Pod because I had to leave. I had to pack everything up and go.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
well, Rik, yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate all of your time. This is a great interview. We covered a lot of stuff, so hopefully the fans out there appreciate it as much as I do. So yeah,
well, I have a tendency to be long-winded. I hope that's okay.
No, I plan for that. I plan for it.
I don't want to be boring.
I set the Zoom for 3 hours.
Wow. So. I was wondering why we haven't been cut off after 55 minutes.
There you go. See, I knew you'd be long-winded. I wanted you to be long-winded. I hoped that you would.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Rik. I really appreciate it, man.
I thank you so much for having me on there, and always a pleasure. And if something else happens up the road, give me a holler and we'll talk some more.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great.
All right, cool.
Take care,
Thanks
man.
for having me.
I'll see you.
All right.